as well. So if we get in some stuttering, we apologize. We're getting weird signal issues here. The weather has gone bonkers.
Yeah, the weather here in Seattle is actually crazy.
Yeah, it is insane. And if you're viewing on YouTube, you see in the link down, the doobly-doo or whatever you want to call it down below, a link to Level Up Dice to pick up a cool dice puck of D6s with our logo on them. And that you'll get an awesome set of dice, and it helps to support the library. Why are we talking to you two today?
Well,
because we're really cool.
Because we're cool dudes and we're hanging out and we live near each other.
I enjoy coming over. I do.
Ben, tell us what we're working on.
Well, we are doing a Kickstarter currently. So we were on your show a couple months ago, I think, kind of talking about, we wanted to Kickstarter some modules. So Brian's an original Magic the Gathering artist, and I have written a bunch of history books and a bunch of web content stuff.
And we're both super D&D nerds.
And we're both super D&D nerds. And we'd been kind of kicking around the idea. We've had a game that we've played together for 5 or 6 years now. Wow. We've been playing as often as we can get people together to play D&D. And we kind of thought, maybe we should work together. It was kind of like a little bit before the quarantine and stuff, but like we were talking about, hey, why don't we try to make some adventures, right? You can illustrate them, I'll write them, and it'll just kind of be like a...
We were both kind of writing them and doing them at the same time, though.
Yeah, it was just kind of like a greatest hits from some of the adventures that we've had, some stuff that's worked really well, some stuff we really like, some cool new ideas, and we thought, why don't we put these together and try to make some modules, make some little adventures that we can sell. And we had talked to you last time about wanting to do it as a Kickstarter, and what ended up happening was like we were all at Emerald City Comic Con, I think the first weekend of a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it was like right before Emerald City Comic Con, and it was like, we've been talking about this, we've been talking about doing these modules, we've been talking about Kickstartering this.
So Ben calls me on the phone. It's like, can we go live on
I came over. I had to ask you in person.
Tomorrow.
I didn't have the courage to ask you over the phone. I was like, look, we're going to this 4-day con, and we're going to be sharing a table together. Neither of us have anything new to show from this year, right? Like, I don't have any new books coming out, and you've got a bunch of new cards, but...
I got new cards, but that's it.
Yeah. But we were like, why don't we just launch it, and we'll have 4 days to just pitch it to everybody that will listen to us, and that's worked out pretty well. So we've
worked out really good.
Yeah. So we've gotten funded. We have something like 400 backers. We just broke $7,000 this morning.
That's great.
And so we were only looking for 5, and that's great. And so we're kind of funded and ready to go. And I guess we should give them the pitch, which is like it's 5D. Well, you should do the pitch because you were doing it all weekend at the comic book convention.
Okay.
But
for $5 and only 5, you will get 5 adventures sent directly to your computer, PDF forms, and it's going to be rip-roaring stuff. It's going to be old school D&D stuff. Ben and I are inspired by the old school stuff, and that's what you're going to get. And because Ben's writing it. Ben writes in a kind of over-the-top style, and my artwork is an old-school, crunchy D&D black and white line art and cool cover paintings and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted to kind of have like
you're going to get something good.
Yeah, it's 5 adventures. You can play them sequentially as a campaign, or you can play them all individually. Yes. They're going to work in 5e and OSR. And possibly Pathfinder First Edition as well, or 3.5. It depends on what the feedback is on the...
3.5, 3.75.
Right, something like that, yes. And
don't get carried away there, Dave.
Well, jokingly, original Pathfinder was jokingly called 3.75.
Yeah, I know.
And then I thought it was funny that later on people that worked at Paizo got mad when you called it that. I'm like, you guys even called it that.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Who instigated this?
Yeah, I was like, literally, you guys were calling it 3.75 for a while.
Yeah. And so, the idea, you can play them individually, you can play them as a group together, and it would be kind of like, we want to go for like a Conan the Cimmerian kind of vibe, right? Like, sword
and sandal.
Yeah. It's a lower magic setting, old school, like hand drawn art and the old style. Like we wanted to read like a Conan story.
Yeah. Some of the newest stuff has some interesting qualities to it, but
It's tough sometimes. There's a lot of like planar travel stuff,
Yeah,
a lot
a
of
little
multiverse
esoteric.
kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
like there's an appeal to like a dude with like a broadsword in a dungeon, like fighting a big snake, right?
Yeah, there is a reason why the original Dungeons and Dragons took off. Because I mean, most of the original stuff was you kept going back to the same city. You had a base of operations, and you were either in a city going down to the dungeons underneath, or
Yeah.
you were in a city or in a town going out to the caves that
Caves
led
of
to
Chaos,
dungeons
yeah.
and stuff. Exactly. Keep on the Borderlands. Yeah, most of and a lot of people haven't gone back to read a lot of that original stuff to realize that.
how good it really was.
Oh, there's so much great, and I tell people that come to the library all the time, one of the most important books to read as a game master is the original AD&D Dungeon Master Guide.
Oh yeah.
Gary Gygax wrote in the most obscure ways,
Yeah.
but there's so much great advice in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, then through Appendix N, which was his reading suggestion list, we ended up getting Dungeon Crawl Classics, which they said, hey, we designed our game based upon that appendix. We went and read all those books and said, we're going to make that into a role-playing game.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And also something Dungeon Crawl Classics does that I love, all of their art is hand-drawn.
It's
They
nice.
refuse to use...
Ta-ting!
Yeah,
You won.
exactly.
Yes.
And there's a couple companies like, hey, our next project's going to have AI art in it. And people are like, oh.
Yeah.
And and maybe for a cyberpunk thing, but still, I mean, you go back and look at the cover of original.
Look at the Gamma World stuff, right?
Yeah.
That was a futuristic thing, but it had all hand-drawn
Yeah,
art.
well, and
it worked.
One of the most iconic cyberpunk covers. It's not cyberpunk, but the original first and second edition Shadowrun.
Yeah, Shadowrun.
That Larry Elmore
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
and that was hand done.
Yeah.
There's always going to be something more special about the hand done art.
I agree, and Ben and I,
And even with that, Goodman Games, they don't accept personal done digital art. So
Yeah.
it is just like you do.
Yeah.
It's either pen and paper, gouache, paint.
Yeah.
They don't accept digital art in
Yeah.
any form.
by the way, those Goodman game guys,
Yeah.
by the way, you guys are great. I love you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
But,
do a good job.
Yeah, I mean, things I love about them is their core rulebook. You get the floppy cover one; it's like this thick. It's everything in there. It's the player's handbook, monster manual, and DM's guide. And it's $25. Includes the PDF code.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah,
That's great.
Because there's a couple companies out there, like Goodman Games and Palladium. Both of them, Kevin Symbieta.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Palladium. They both we want to get our game in your hands. Why should we charge you $60 for one book when you're gonna need more? And if I can put a game, and like I remember talking to Kevin 3-4 years ago, and he goes, if I can put a book into your hands for $30 or $40 and you start playing, he goes, that's way more important to me than making a couple more dollars for you to wait a month or two to buy that $60 book. And he goes, if you buy that $60 book and then you discover you don't like it, then you don't like games. He goes, you may never play another role-playing game. He goes, you spend $20 or $30 or maybe $40 on my book. You don't like it. Maybe you'll try another game. He goes, maybe you do like it and you buy more of my stuff.
Yeah.
And he goes, that's far more important. He goes, I want you to have more content versus me having more of your funds.
Of course, and that makes sense too.
And that's
right?
kind of what we're going for here too, right? I mean, our modules are 99 cents, so it's like, if you like these, you'll like them, and that's great, right? But sometimes you can get some PDFs are like $10 or something, right? And it's like it's too much for an adventure, and our adventures are pretty long. Our adventures are 40 something pages. They're about the size of one of these guys, with whatever 15 to 20 pieces of art in them. And it's 99 cents, which is a good deal. And if you don't like the adventure for 99 cents, like maybe you just use an encounter out of the book, or you use the random encounter table, or there's one thing in there that gives you a good idea for something to put into your own module. Like that's worth 99 cents. But it's not worth $6. I wouldn't pay $5.99 for that.
Yeah.
I think I took one little piece of information out of.
And you're charging only 99 cents, and you're getting a world-class artist, and
Thank you. Your check's in the mail, Dave. Right? Do you want another beer?
I am saying that as someone that has liked your art since what is it, beta edition of Magic.
Okay, thank you.
You've done a lot of awesome art, and friended you on Facebook a number of years ago, and seeing the stuff that you share there. I mean, the quality of your art is just. It's funny because you look back at what you were doing in the early '90s. You're like, "Oh, this is far better than I could do." But compared to now, like night and day difference.
Let's not talk about what I did back in the 90s. I've improved since. I've been studying.
But it is awesome to see that even though you were being paid as an artist then, you've still progressed and become better.
Well, you have to.
Yeah.
You have to, or you die. I mean, basically, not physical death, but artistic death.
Yeah, and it is funny because I've run into artists that get it. They're I'm making money off this, and then they get into this major rut because they're making money. And they're like, oh, if I change this, it'll no longer be my style.
I understand.
And your style is still your style, but what you do today is so much better than the things I fell in love with, the original Magic.
Thank you.
And then...
And you're getting to redo some of your covers now, too, or some of your cards, right? Like, aren't you doing new versions of them?
Yeah, I've done new version of cards. Wizards of the Coast has ordered a couple of new versions of cards that I've done, like, years and years ago. Vindicate was one of them.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, just recently, yeah.
Was it the 20th anniversary or the 25th anniversary? The book that was put out.
Oh yeah.
Heather Hudson redid Chains of Mephistopheles.
Yeah.
And I know that's on the do not reprint list, but I want that reprinted with that new art because that art is stunning.
Yeah, and Heather's great too.
Oh my god. Yeah, and I remember talking to her about that. She was like, "I hate the original art. I love it because it perfectly encapsulates Magic at that time frame, but that new piece is gorgeous, and the name Chains of Mephistopheles screams that art screams it.
You know what's really funny is that Julie Barrow and Heather Hudson and I used to sit at this very table for about a year and just do artwork together I think it was every Wednesday or Tuesday, can't remember, for like a year.
Yeah, it is.
It's a small world.
It is. Well, it is funny to think about how many of those original Magic artists are all still in this area.
Yeah, because Heather and Daniel just live down the road. They live on 50th Street or something like that.
Yeah, and Mark lives in the area.
Yeah, Mark lives on Capitol Hill.
Mark here,
Yeah. Julie lives in West Seattle.
Yeah. But I mean, it's because Wizards was located here.
Yeah.
You guys were the cheap, easy to access artists at the time.
Cheap and easy is correct. Right? You nailed it, Dave.
Well, I had a discussion with Larry Elmore. It's like, everybody I was asking was like, were you never contacted about the original Magic? And he goes, oh, absolutely. He goes, but I wouldn't change my prices. Because they offered him like, stock or price points and stuff. Yeah. And he was like, nope. He goes, I don't need to do that. He was a well-established artist. He goes, this is what I charge per piece. Yeah. And, I was standing there when somebody's, interrupted, like, you don't regret that? He goes, no. He goes, so if I would have changed, he goes, some of these other artists wouldn't have gotten chances. He goes, I had my chance. He goes, and then he got to do some pieces in Magic later when they come to him and they said, hey, we'll pay you, what's your rate? Okay, we'll pay that. And he's very happy. I brought him a Swamp to sign because a friend of mine is a huge Elmore fan. So I had him sign a Swamp, and it was at Reynolds Comic-Con during the 25th anniversary, and gave it to my friend at the end of the show. And he was like, what? He's like, how did you get that? And I was like, I just went over and talked to Larry Elmore. He's like, oh, I couldn't have done that. I was like,
no, Larry's a really cool guy.
Super nice guy.
I ate lunch with Larry Elmore like 25 years ago at a local science fiction convention. And it was me and my girlfriend at the time. And another
by chance?
couple. It might have been NorwestCon or RustyCon. I can't remember which one.
RustyCon, I think, is long gone. But NorwestCon, we'll be at NorwestCon in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And SakuraCon the same weekend.
Okay, yeah.
Library is going to be at 2 places the same weekend.
You're a better person
luck,
than I am. Yeah, good luck to you.
Have some amazing volunteers and an awesome wife that's in the other room.
Yes, painting away. Yeah, but Larry he's a very approachable guy. He's really funny too, and he's a big motorcycle dude. And
I can see him as a motorcycle.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. He's hi, Larry. I know you probably don't remember me, but I'm a big fan. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome little tidbits and stuff like that you get to in this industry, and you meet some awesome people in this industry. I always get frustrated with people that only want to share a bad story about somebody. I was like, man, there's so many great stories.
But
about
there's
people.
fun.
Yeah.
What about the fun stuff?
Yeah.
That's what I like.
Yes, exactly. There's amazing stories about people. Like share all the good memories, and not that I'm saying that anybody's had a bad story about either you or Larry.
Good.
Have not heard any bad
Because I
stories.
pay people to on my payroll to not say the bad stuff about
That's why he lives in.
I hadn't even considered that you were going there, and now I feel like you're being nice to me.
Wait a minute. I need another drink.
No, I have never heard bad stories about either you or Larry Elmore.
Yeah.
Nothing but... Actually, the funny thing is, I don't hear many stories about Larry Elmore.
Because he's kind of a quiet guy,
Yeah. But super nice.
He's really nice.
Yeah. So, like, every event he's been to, he's just, like, there smiling, signing away.
Yeah.
And, it's like, and people... I guess he's one of those people, art-wise, that they know his art and is so revered, they just come up, like, awestruck.
Yeah.
And then walk away. They're like,
Yeah.
dude, I just met Larry Elmore. Like,
Yeah.
you just go say something. He's a really nice dude.
Yeah, Larry's pretty cool. And his art is very distinctive, too. You can tell a Larry Elmore sketch or drawing from 100 miles away. And I think that's cool, too.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely does have a very unique... Yeah, you can see it. You're like, oh, yep.
Yeah, love it.
All the females have, like, a very distinct face.
Yes.
Like, every single one. You know a Larry Elmore female by, like, he has a very distinct shape in their face.
Yeah.
And going back to Kevin Symbieta, he started out doing art.
Yes, I know, because I met Kevin 25 years ago. And Kevin, you're not going to remember this either. I met you at Gen Con like 25 years ago.
That's where I met him.
And I chatted with him because I was a big fan. I was a big fan of his artwork and stuff. And so I talked with him at the table because they were doing riffs at the time. And
Still is.
yeah, I know. It's a pretty cool game. And I bought one of the Palladium books with a bunch of his artwork in it, and chatting with him, and that was the end of the story.
I love that he...
I got to talk to Kevin. I was so happy.
I really thought you were going somewhere.
No, I was such a nerd. I'm like, hi, Kevin. I'm a big fan. And, I was a nobody at the time.
Yeah, he was just a young guy, started doing art for Judges
Yeah,
Guild to basically pay for his habit of role-playing.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
so he was, and that was part of the reason why he hated basically having to save up to buy stuff. That's why he charges so little for his books now. So he was, like, hey, I did, have to do several pieces of artwork to be able to afford the books I wanted to buy. And it's funny because you look at his earliest pieces, they're not good. And he got better fairly quick.
Oh, he got better real quick.
Yeah, because his first things are just like simple line.
Well, he did all that
drawings.
line art stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because I was a product illustrator too, and so I appreciated Kevin because he drew all those weapons and all that equipment and stuff, and I appreciated it.
Yeah, I remember it's like you can see in those first couple years of Judges Guild from. We hired this kid because he asked it to. He's doing great work. Like wow, like quick scaling up in capability. And then went on to make his own game company.
Yeah, good for you.
And I love that man's passion. And Palladium survived the death of RPGs of
Yes,
the
it
90s.
did.
Love people today like it wasn't that bad. I was like. The RPG industry was dead.
It went to
late
hell
90s.
pretty quick. Yeah.
Once all the distributors and everything, they go, oh, TSR is being bought out because they were going to go bankrupt. They're like,
Yes.
oh god, everybody was dumping everybody. Then within like 18 months of that,
about a year
the
and a
number
half.
the number 2 company, West End Games, was gone. They're like, oh, we're bankrupt, we're gone. They're like, oh, wait, the number 1 went bankrupt and got bought out. Then the second one, number 2 is just bankrupt and gone. And Artel Saurian, Chaosium, and Palladium.
Yeah.
They survived. FOSSA kind of
FOSSA,
survived.
FOSSA didn't survive. They went
Yeah.
to hell.
Yeah,
I know
like,
because
so I said
they
kinda-
owed me money
So
for
I said
years.
kind of survived. Like they kept trying to, and they, everything got parsed out.
Well, Chaosium, I think, is they're doing all the
Yeah,
Cthulhu stuff.
Yep, Chaosium doing all the Cthulhu stuff
Yeah.
still. And they're doing some awesome things. Artel Saurian put out a new Cyberpunk. So they got Cyberpunk Red.
That I didn't know.
Yep, they got Cyberpunk Red. They're doing the Witcher RPG. And the cool thing with all their new stuff, every month they put out something free for every one of their games.
That's cool.
Which is really cool. And Palladium is still knocking out of the park, putting new things out.
Cool.
And there's not too many companies that really survived that collapse of the 90s. And it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, because there was a lot of really, really bad games.
Well, there's a bunch of crap out there.
yeah, and there still is.
I need some more adult beverages. Ben, take over. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go pour myself something.
So you have 5.99 games now.
Yeah, 5 little adventures. They are somewhere in the 40 to 60 page range. So we were just kind of hoping for like this size.
Yeah.
Kind of self-contained adventures, or you could play them all in a series. And the idea would be kind of have like an old school feel to it, but try to include some new stuff that takes some new tack on certain things. Try to do things in a different way. Try to do some stuff that hasn't been done before, because that's kind of the pitfall you fall into with the like, I want to do it old school style, and it's like, all right, well, now that's been done for the last 40 years. Like, what can you bring to the table that we haven't already seen, right?
Yeah.
Dude in a broadsword in a dungeon fighting a big snake is like, we've seen that. That's the cover of one of the Conan books. Like, how can you do that in a way that isn't, cliche?
Yeah, and that is a rough thing, especially in the fantasy realm.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you make something new and exciting within the fantasy realm? Is it just trying to reshape a trope, or is it going crazy like with D&D multiple times doing a spaceship based? Because what was the first one in first ed? I can't remember it all of a sudden, but second ed it was the box set Night of the Comet.
Yeah, there was. You were just talking about it. The
Barrier Peaks.
Barrier Peaks.
Barrier
Yeah.
Peaks, yeah. You had Barrier Peaks in first AD&D first ed, and
that was
Night of the
in
Comet.
79 or 78.
Yeah, and both of them I love, because you're adventuring through.
Yeah.
You're in a
UFO.
spaceship. Yeah. But your
your
characters
characters
don't.
don't, yeah.
And how things are described is like the very funny shaped wand. It fires magic missiles. It's like, oh, it's a ray gun.
Yeah.
It's like it's hilarious.
Yeah. So for us, like, we didn't, and that's kind of, I guess that's kind of also the direction that current D&D is going with this, right? Because you're doing a lot of multiverse stuff. You're doing a lot of like, different planar travel things.
Yeah.
I always say that like one of the best planar travel is always very confusing when you read it in first edition, but I think the Avengers is kind of like the good example for how to do that right now. But you see a lot of that in some of the newer stuff, and it's like, there's an art style to it, and there's a way of writing it, and there's a style of adventures, and that really works well for some people. But for me, like, I don't love the adventures where you're 16th level and you're like fighting 3 dragons and a god at the same time, right? And your character sheet's this long, and nobody understands what their guys do anymore, and like every turn of combat takes an hour and a half, right?
Oh, so D&D 5th ed.
Right, yeah.
Calm down.
I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody or anything. I like, everything has its own merits, and if this is the sort of thing you like, then you are totally welcome to like it.
I do like to pick on 5e, just because it's the 500-pound gorilla in the industry.
Sure. Understandable.
I tell people
they painted that target on their face for a reason.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we want to offer an alternative to that. If you can play for the Dungeons and Dragons and have it play like a Conan the Barbarian adventure, and here's how. But like with trying the new stuff, like we want to do different beginning, right?
Yeah.
So I think I told you the first module opens. You're level 1 character, no armor, weapons, equipment, or money. You're in the back of
clothes.
or clothes. Yeah, you're in the back of a gnoll cart. You've been captured by gnolls. They're dragging you off to their lair to be like killed and eaten. The cart like breaks a wheel, falls over, breaks open, and you got to run away into the forest. And gnolls are
I think
chasing
we have
you.
that art.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can dig it up.
And
Keep talking.
So then most of the first module is your level 1 character and you're playing in this D&D setting, but you're going through the forest trying to like find food and clean water and like build a shelter, and you get to town, but oh yeah, here's the picture of the gnoll cart exploding and everybody falling out of it.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll put it here.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it's stuff that, you know, you don't usually think about for a D&D adventure, especially a 5th edition D&D adventure, is like, how am I going to find clean water? And if you don't boil the water before you drink it, you get sick because you're supposed to boil water before you drink it. And then you get to town. Okay, there's a little town here. It's this little one-horse town.
You don't have any money, so you can't
don't
buy
have any
anything.
money. Right. What are you going to do here? Your bard's going to finally earn his keep.
Have you found something to clothe yourself before you go wandering
Yes.
into the town?
Some fig leaves or something.
Gonna steal a plate to walk
Yeah,
around.
exactly.
Well, you're in rags. So you show up and you're in rags, but you look like you've been running through the forest, like fighting wolves with a stick, right?
Yeah.
Like you're making improvised weapons out of rocks and sticks and stuff, and like
Literally.
yeah.
Sounds like the starting is a good halfway between what 5e typically is, and a lot of people that love 5e love it because it is a very heroic system.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there isn't, and and that's one of the things. As long as you know that going in, because some people that hadn't played in years, they get back into it and they're like, "This isn't the D&D for me," because it's 5e is definitely not what first and second edition.
Yeah.
And then you go over to like Dungeon Crawl Classics, where you start off with 4 0 characters. What survives becomes your first level character. So you're starting kind of in that halfway between the you know nothing and the superhero.
Yeah, and this was a big challenge for us because we wanted to. We're old school. We're old school guys, right? I started in 2nd edition, and Brian started in first.
Yeah.
And we wanted to
started in
capture.
first.
Yeah, we wanted to capture that feel of like that old school stuff, and we also want to do it for OSR as well as 5e, which are very different systems, obviously. And so, one of the ways we had to try to manage that. I mean, it was a challenge to manage that because 5e is very heroic, and one of the ways we tried to do that was, the rest mechanic in 5e is wildly different from from first or OSR, and so you really have to be continually hammering. So we try to like you said, 5e is very heroic, and if you have an hour to rest, suddenly you're like back at 50% health and stuff. And in the old days, the dungeon's designed to grind you down, and we have to put in a lot of stuff for this one of like we want to grind you down in 5th, right? You don't have 8 hours to take a long rest to get all your hit points back, because if you go to rest, these wolves are going to come and get you while you're sleeping or whatever. And if you want that long rest, you better build a shelter. You better build like a fire, get some food, some water.
So then you have to have your bushcraft skills and all this kind of stuff, or you're going to be suffering.
Yeah, so you actually have to use the skills that people ignore for the most games.
They ignore a lot of it, and
and
we're
in
going to hammer them a little bit.
And in Module 2, it's not a big deal, right? By the end of Module 1, you get up to probably like third level. In Module 2, you're going through the wilderness, you're your 3rd level, and it's assumed that at this point your guys have figured out how to make this happen, right? You don't want to make the 6th level rogue like sneak attack a bunny to get dinner for the night, Like,
Really? You didn't want to do that with
you
them?
figured it out. Like you guys got it under control. It's fine. You've proven that you can do it. We're not gonna like slow down the gaming session with this crap every single time you want to rest.
But you're going through a less heroic evolution of the characters.
Yes.
Yeah.
We start out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we want to and most of the modules we try to do that. It's just like, we try to, once you get into the dungeon, there's like no rest. And it makes it feel like a more livable dungeon. There's a module that comes later where you're in this old fort, and there's bugbears and goblins and other stuff that live in the fort. And, you can rest. You can try to take your long rest, but there's like a 60% chance that
They're
while you're
pounding at the door.
while you're
Waiting to
sleeping,
get
those
in.
bugbears are going to sneak up on you and start clubbing you over the head because they live there and you're not supposed to be there and they know you're there, right? So that makes it hard, right? We have to try to make the dungeons a little grindier than you usually see in a 5th edition campaign. In order to keep the party, like, I don't want to say scared, but
occupied.
yeah, busy. If you want to get that long rest, you're gonna have to go back to town and get it, and come back later, and maybe the bad guys have regrouped by then.
Yeah, I love systems that do that. There's a Free League. They've got a game, Vaesen. It's late 1800s Swedish horror.
Oh wow!
So it's basically, think of like late 1800s Scooby-Doo, Ghostbusters. So you're a team of
With
adventurers.
with umlauts over the top of the O.
It's
Scooby-Doo.
Nice. So
You're welcome.
You have a base of operations, and you go out to like a haunted house, and you got to figure out why it's haunted. And then all the hauntings and everything are based off of old Scandinavian folklore.
Oh, cool.
And when you level up, you can actually spend some of your points that you're leveling up with on your base operations.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh,
I like
So
that.
you're based in
Interesting.
you're based in a castle. So it's like, okay, I made a level 3. What do we need better at the back of the castle? And then if you fail a roll, you can get a reroll by pushing yourself. But a negative thing will happen, and it's up to the GM to say what that negative thing is. Now you're a little more antsy. You don't trust your teammates.
Tired. You're
Yeah.
sleep deprived
Yeah,
and
yeah.
grumpy,
You can't
right?
get rid of that.
You're
until
seeing
you-
double.
Yeah. So even if you take a rest in that house, that doesn't go away until you rest like back at
Oh,
home
away
base.
from the adventure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and then they released an expansion for Great Britain and Ireland. So you're based in London, going out and dealing with Irish and British folklore.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff,
yeah.
and that's
Yeah,
the
it's
style.
really cool.
First
Oh,
was
yeah.
like that. First and second edition were like that, and I love
Yeah.
that. But we're kind of like, we want to do this for 5e because that's what everybody's playing, and we have to. We had originally, like in some of the early planning sessions, talked about like, hey, maybe we could put a little special rule at the beginning, like actually stuff works different, but you can't. You have to work within the confines of the game.
Yeah, you
do.
do. Yeah,
So
you
you
do.
just have to tailor the adventure. So
Yeah.
the OSR version of our book and the 5e version of our book are going to be pretty significantly different because it's
And
hard to adapt.
With
that.
the library, I've read through a lot of modules that for this or this, and you read through, and it's just it's a cluttered mess.
Yeah, you can't just restat it because the game it's a different game, and
Yes.
the
If
story's
you're
the same. The little text boxes that you read are the same for the most part, but like the mechanics are
Yeah.
different, the monsters are different. In the OSR version, a couple of your random, and actually in the 5th too is like it's a thing you don't see that often in 5th these days, but like. Some of the random encounters are things that you are not equipped to handle, and you should run away. This thing is bigger and stronger than you, and you better recognize that, or it's going to kill you all.
I love throwing crazy things at people that they shouldn't fight to see who understands what they shouldn't fight.
Right.
Yeah, and also a decent dungeon master, I'd like to think I'm one of them, can scale it up or scale it down because everyone knows when you have a D&D party, only half the people are going to show up, right? And they're like, oh, I got to cancel. No, my wife is yelling at me. No, my girlfriend doesn't want me to play.
The fifth level wizard doesn't cast fireball. They just keep one into chill touch.
Yeah,
It's
I
like do the other thing. Turn your spell sheet over and look at the 3rd level spells on the back. Those are the good ones.
So you have to be able to scale things up or down
Yeah.
at a moment's notice.
Yes.
Yeah, that was some playtesting stuff too. That came up a couple times in playtesting when we've
Came up more than a
playtested
couple
several
times,
times. We've run through all of these modules a couple times now, and there was some, especially at the beginning, where you're like, all right, then this starts, and the encounter starts, and you're looking at your book, and you're like, uh-oh, I think I'm gonna kill everybody.
I better tap the brakes a little
Yeah,
bit.
I think I'm going to reduce this guy's attack bonus by 3 and have his hit points, because otherwise I think all these guys are just going to get annihilated in turn 2.
Yeah,
This guy's breath weapon just killed 3 members of the party.
and we just started.
On turn, and
Took you an hour and a half to roll up that character. He's dead in 3 seconds.
then it's not even your initiative yet. You didn't even get to go.
Like, how do we fix this? Oh, the animator had a heart attack and died.
Exactly.
Yes. Because at the beginning of module 1, like the cart breaks open and you're running out, and I want to the gnolls come and they're shooting arrows at you and stuff, and like One thing that we're trying to do with the modules too is to try to make it accessible for new players, because there's a lot of people that want to get into playing and DMing adventures. So I want to put a lot of notes in there for new DMs.
Yes.
Which you don't see that often in these kinds of things. So with that, at the very beginning of the Knoll one, the Knolls come out and they're shooting arrows at you while you're running away. They're throwing javelins if they can. They're releasing, like they're running after you. And so that's kind of a difficult mechanic, but it's like, yeah, in the book, it's like roll some dice. And if you get a natural 20, like take a couple hit points off one of the guys. But like the purpose of this is not to kill your party 2 seconds into the adventure. Roll dice, make them scared. Run! You guys are running. You're running. Oh, they're shooting arrows. Whatever, But that's a DM trick
give
that
them
you can
something.
do.
Yeah, it's a good DM trick. You get them all excited and stuff, and they're rolling dice, and it means something, but it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
That's why I love GM screens, because I love the theater of rolling dice.
Oh yeah.
I'm a big proponent of GM screens because we're all telling a story. My dice don't matter, but as players, your dice do.
Yes,
Yeah.
they do.
Because I'm laying out the broad story. You're filling in the blanks, and your dice are the things that screw you up. I shouldn't be rolling. Just because I'm
Yeah.
having a hot streak on dice shouldn't ruin everybody else's game.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fake dice roll. Like,
Oh,
I'm gonna go ahead.
that's
and
my
open
favorite thing.
I'm gonna go ahead and open the door. Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. Go ahead. You open the door. Nothing happens.
A lot of times,
And everybody's like, "Oh, God."
a lot of times, I will
There's
say,
nothing. I haven't rolled any dice. They haven't been scared in a while. Like,
I'll point to
okay.
somebody. I'll say, "Oh, we're gonna go around the table." Next, and they're all sitting there like doughy-eyed.
Oh, you gave me a thing that I've incorporated into these books where it's just like you'll point at somebody at the table and be like, okay, Ben, roll a d6. Tell me what you get. 3. Okay. All right, so you guys are continuing on. I don't know if that means anything or not, but it's scary when you're like, I don't know, 3. Is that good? Is that bad?
Luck rolls.
Yes.
Like, hey, can you give me a luck check? And you're like, what's that? Just roll
Just
a
roll
d20,
a
see what
dice,
you
yeah.
get. Let me know.
Pick a number between 1 and 20.
And that's funny because when people start talking, right? They're talking. I'm like, okay, everybody, roll 6-sided dice. Tell me what you got.
Yeah.
And you can listen to a pin drop, right?
Like, what order are you guys in again?
Yeah.
Oh, you're in the back?
Oh yeah. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Click.
Yeah.
It's making these players engage. So,
But you have to be on the ball for it.
Yes.
You have to,
So at PAX Unplugged 2018, I ended up with a 16-player pickup game of D6
God.
Star Wars.
16 people.
And it was like no more than 2.
And you're not in an insane asylum now?
Oh, and it was like all random people. It was like these 2 people knew each other, these 2 people knew each other, and there was a whole bunch of singles because it was like 8 people had signed up, and then I had 4 like reserves, or, just in case slots. And I was like, it's late. You guys can jump in. And some other people were like, oh, can we play? There was 16 people at the table.
So you guys are you guys have a rebel strike force infiltrating a base.
Almost what it was. Oh, it's hilarious because I thought I'd busted my toe. I messed up my toe, so I'm there like toe wrapped in ice packs, set up. I'm at one end of this long table, and I got everybody's doing some planning. And young lady all the way at the other end of the table. And if you've ever been back east, there's a chip company called Utz. They don't ship chips out here. I love they have the greatest salt and vinegar chips, and I forgot to bring back some Utz for the wife on that trip because I ate them all that night. But young lady at the other end of the table, not participating, I was like, so what's your idea? And I had this bag of chips, and I was like, just deliberately eating one chip every time I ask her a question. Oh, that sounds really interesting. Just like, and slowly, as she's telling me more, everyone's like, they're slowly looking at me, then staring at her, and then they're like, wait, hang on, what do you, all of a sudden now everybody is
Focused.
totally focused on
Yeah.
her. What is your idea? Oh God, is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? And I'm just still there, just slowly eating one potato chip at a time.
We should get Utz
as
to sponsor us.
deliberately as possible. And it was great because I drew her into the game. Everybody, and then they incorporated some of her ideas into their ideas, and she became a bigger part of the game.
And
that's a great way to do
it. One of the players, he came back. And he goes, the game was fun. He goes, but I had a way more enjoyable time watching you be eating potato chips in the most evil way, getting 16 people that didn't know each other to communicate and play a game. But you were eating chips like a freaking evil dictator out of a movie.
And that's like a great example of a good way to like corral a bunch of people, because a lot of times what you'll see is like everybody's sitting there goofing off, talking like, all right, monsters attack you while you guys are sitting there goofing off. But now we got combat, and combat is an awesome opportunity for a group of 16 people to goof off.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like, all right, well, I'm 14 more people tell me, I'll just talk to you until I get here. And then when it's your turn, you're like, oh, I don't know,
What's happened?
Yeah.
And especially when I play bigger games. The most bonkers size game was a Star Wars D6 Star Wars game, late 90s. Started out with 1 GM and 7 or 6 players, and then when I left in 2000 from that area, it was 7 GMs and 64 players.
Madonna.
We actually had to adapt live action rules just because there was no way.
Yeah.
It's like you could break them down into 7 groups. So Friday, all the GMs would get together and like, okay, this is what's happened so far. Here's what's going on next week. I became the primary GM and was crafting the story between the other 6 GMs.
It's like a full-time job.
Yeah, I know. Do you pay for that?
No,
What's your hourly rate?
Well, I got snacks. Like all the players would buy.
You got us to supply your chips for you.
That was down in Texas. So we it was funny because the shop we went to, they normally rented out their rooms, but we would show up with 70 people. And they didn't charge us anything for the rooms. And one of our GMs asked why. They go, "Oh no, we make way more money off of selling your group snacks than we would charging you rent for the rooms."
Oh, that's great.
The GMs,
It's like a bartender.
Yeah, the GMs we never paid for anything. We'd come in on that Saturday. We'd play for like 6-7 hours, and all the players would just come in. They would just buy us drinks and snacks all night long. And we had a couple people that pitch in and order pizza for the group, and all the people that worked there got pizza as well. So. That store loved us. I'm sure they were devastated when I was like,
we should open
hey,
up our own pizza shop.
Yeah.
D20 Pizza.
Any way that
We'll be millionaires.
Yeah. All the pizzas are not round. They're
there we go.
they're shaped
Polyhedral,
like polyhedral pizzas. That'd be awesome. You just get a little thing, and then you cut them out, so it's
polyhedral pizza.
Cut them into 12s, you roll D12, that's how many slices you get.
Just one.
You want a D6, D12, or D10 pizza? That's their sizes, right?
I had a friend in college who wanted to open a place called Pie Man's House of Circular Foods, and you had to buy it by the radian.
So he's a mathematician.
I was gonna say the math kids on campus were like, this is the greatest place ever. Everyone else like, I haven't figured out how to order it.
I can't figure out how many radians of pizza I want here. Yeah, he's a math professor now. Go figure.
3 years coming to this place, I still don't know what I'm gonna order. Can I get a number pie?
Was that 3.18 or something like that? I can't.
No, he wanted it. The wallpaper was going to be the number pi taken out to a billion decimals, and that would just go around the entire inside of the.
Well, there's a place
round building in which it is place.
There is a place in Oklahoma City called My Pie, and the door handles was pie.
Nice.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, and you had to open. And my father loved it because my dad's a big math guy. And he would always say, "You know what this means? We don't care, Dad. We don't like going to eat freaking pizza."
It's Stonehenge. They got Stonehenge on the door here.
I don't know, but there's an R in there somewhere.
There's an R.
Oh, we're having too much fun.
I see. I like coming over and doing this. We haven't. We were trying to start.
Are we your favorite, Dave?
So far, yes. You're definitely my favorite that we've done live because, well, you're my only one that we've done live like this.
Okay,
We'll take it.
we'll take it. Yeah.
You're the tops.
Okay, great.
Don't push your luck.
You're the best. You're the best too that I've done so far.
Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to.
Well, we took part of December off just because we'd been going so hard last year, and then the industry went kind of bonkers in January. So everybody that we had lined up for like January, February, like, hey, can we do that some other time? Probably not a good time to have people just ask random game designer questions.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what are you going to do about the OGL? What are you going to do about the OGL?
That was a big problem for
that
us,
was
man.
crazy.
That was
Oh,
a big
yeah.
problem for us because
Yeah.
we were like pretty far along on the planning on this. Like
Yeah.
we had already had our thing, and we're just like, I don't know. So we had like a bit of time where nothing was happening, and that was the other inspiration for this Emerald City thing, where it was like, look, all right, this is settled. We can do it.
Yeah.
We've been sitting on this for 3 months or whatever, 4 months now, being like, I don't even know if this is going to be worth it anymore. Suddenly, we put a lot of this art was already done, and it's
Yeah.
like, man, we put all these hours into this.
And I got
Yeah.
a bat phone hotline into some people at Wizards of the Coast, and I called them and I said, hey, what's going on? Like, I don't know. Click.
Yeah, it was the place was utter confusion during that
Yeah.
time frame, and it was funny because the library we joined on to be part of the ORC, the Open Role Playing gaming license, because one, I wanted to be sure that we could see how it was being crafted. And there was some people pitching some crazy ideas, and thankfully a lot of people go, nope, like that's not going to happen. There was some push on some stuff like, hey, we need this and this in there. Like, sorry, this is an open license. This isn't, if you want to go do that on as a individual license on your product, do that. Because a lot of people don't realize, like Paizo, you can they release the first edition Pathfinder is released under the OGL, but if you want to use Pathfinder itself, you have to get a license through them.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty restrictive license, and I have zero issue with that. But if you're going to have an open gaming license, that needs to be very unrestricted.
Ting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We ran into some of that with, because I wrote
Ben is a rules lawyer, so
I wrote the copyright page for the first module like last week, and it took me all week to write 2 pages worth of stuff because you have to include that. And like for us, we have a little clause in there like, this is published under open gaming license, and we have to use the SRD, which has some weird stuff in it, right? Like, none of the character background, there's one character background that's in the SRD, and none of the other character backgrounds that are in the 5th edition book are open license. So we wanted to put pre-generated characters in because we think it gets into the action quicker to just pass out character sheets and start playing, but we had to create custom backgrounds for all those people. Okay, that's fine, that's no problem. But yeah, you can kind of tweak it as well. Like we had to, when we put out a thing like, all right, we use the open gaming license, but our stuff, like our proper names and places and our characters, our Samirki the Dragon is not open gaming license. She's restricted to us. Like we don't want to release that.
Exactly, and a lot of people don't understand that. And it was funny because the other thing people don't realize, everybody always, me included, like, hey, game mechanics aren't copyrightable. But the language used to describe
it is. Yes.
So the mechanic of rolling dice is not, but how you describe how the dice are rolled.
Yeah.
And
very restricted.
Yeah. So I pitched the idea through the library. I was like, hey, get a bunch of volunteers, and we're just going to rewrite the SRD. And I told some people over at WotC, I was like, we're tired of this. This is what, I have a bunch of volunteers that are willing to come do this. And they were like, oh, like, I don't think they thought people were willing to do that. But there was enough people that...
See, here's the thing.
Right.
Why not? Because their entire company is based on people who did do that.
Exactly.
Right? So that makes no sense to me that they don't...
The industry would not be as big as it is now if it wasn't for that OGL.
Yes, of course.
Because, most people, they didn't live through the 90s, and TSR under She Who Shall Not Be Named, who sued everyone who brought anything remotely D&D around, including Gary Gygax. Yeah. She sued that man at every chance she got.
I know. If you look at that, what was that? They made a documentary on that.
Yes, I can't remember the name of it, but it is a must watch.
It is. It's a little sad too.
Yeah, and the frustrating thing is, one, TSR was never well run at any point in its life.
It's run out of somebody's house.
Yeah, and Gary and I can't think of the brothers' names all of a sudden, but they were gamers, and they just happened upon something that got popular.
Yeah.
They were never businessmen. When Gary invited Lorena Williams in to fix their books. That's what she did. That's what she was good
Yeah.
at. And she righted the company at that point. And then Gary wanted to bring her in, and then she turned him down, or I forget but then he left off to Hollywood again, and the brothers sold out to her, and then she didn't understand how to run the business. She was the numbers person. And
And they forgot about the creativity
Yeah.
and stuff, and which is how it started to begin with.
exactly. And that's the roughest part about running a creative.
It's called balance.
Yes, and I tell artists and game designers all the time: get a business person to do the business things for you. Business people need to do the.
Or you get
business
smart
parts.
people like Ben. Ben's smarter than me.
Well, look, if they hadn't like released the 5e to the Open Gaming license, I don't know that I'm smart enough to have like maneuvered around it. Brad,
What?
are you refreshing yourself?
Yes. Do you need one?
I would love one. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
I'm getting it.
Ah, thank you. Yeah, and it's a lot, but having it released to Creative Commons is great.
Yes.
Having it released, like the situation now is really good. There's
it
some
is
stuff you
much
got to
better.
keep track of, like, and honestly, like the best advice I got on how to, for people who want to self-publish D&D content, the best advice I got was to like. There's a couple websites that kind of walk you through it, but I went on DriveThruRPG and I just bought like 6 or 7 things that had come out since the OGL had changed.
Yeah.
And just looked at how they did it, because that's a good way to kind of get an idea for it. But
Yeah. Well, and I'm still frustrated that they've said they won't change the OGL, but they haven't released it to like Creative Commons or anything like that. So the
Didn't they
OGL.
release it to Creative Commons?
No, the SRD they did.
Oh.
The OGL Wizard still has.
Oh, I see.
And still could technically change. But I think they're just going to leave it as is, and when 1 D&D comes out, that's going to be all digital, and it's going to be the only physical releases are going to be special prints, and they're going to rope people into doing license through them to be released in the digital platform. So I think that's the
Sounds
way.
very complicated.
yeah, I was like, I don't understand it either.
Yeah, I know.
I'm lost.
Can we get a lawyer in here to explain all that? Because I didn't understand any of it.
All I'm saying is you can't use the word dungeon master if you're self-publishing D&D
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
because that is not okay. That is a
Yeah.
copyrighted term. You gotta, and you can't use beholders. Those are the two things.
No beholders, no mind flares.
Umber Hulks, which is a weird one, which is a weird,
Umber Hulk,
a weird pick. Yeah.
Which is just
Yuan Ti.
brown Hulk. Yeah, it's just color.
No, it's a little sketchy to like get
Dark brown.
Yes.
I guess they got around. I guess they got away with like Eye Tyrant or whatever for the beholders in Pathfinder. But
Oh yeah, there's like because like there's a bunch of interesting ways that people got around them, and
big looky eye.
I like that.
big geeky eye, the eye with many eyes.
Yeah, eye with eyes.
Yes.
That sees things.
Now it has an S at the end of it because multiple, right? Right.
Yeah, that's the fun thing is watching people get creative because we've got 50 years of people being rules lawyers that have grown up to be either game designers or rules
Real lawyer.
like, hey, let's start a fight with
I got a degree.
let's start a fight.
passed the
with people
bar.
that have been sitting at tables arguing over rules and figuring out loopholes around things that are trying.
You could hear the well actually from here.
Oh yeah, and I spent a lot of breath trying to correct people during that time. Like, hey, you're 80% correct, because there were a lot of people like getting things very wrong, and then some bad information getting out, and getting people extra stirred up, or people going, "Oh, it's not nearly as bad as you think." I was like, well, it's worse than you think, but it's not as bad as these people think.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, there was so much bad info out there.
Yeah,
It was
we were just
crazy.
on
Yeah.
pause. We're like,
Yeah.
pause. I was out of the country anyway. We weren't working on the thing. I was like,
Yeah,
all right,
Ben was in Brazil.
So what was
I'm
happening?
texting him.
You text me like,
I'm like,
Ben, are you
"Hey, Ben,
following
what
this?
are we doing? Yeah.
I'm gonna
It's like
send,
every time you send me a message, it costs me 10 cents. Is this important? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna send
What time is it over? It makes a difference.
4 hours, 5 hour time change because they don't have daylight savings time. Watch these 3 YouTube videos.
I know.
It's the end of the world.
I know, Ben, it's the end of the world. Tapping it in.
It is, and it was bonkers, and it was funny because some of us had said, "Hey, this is probably coming soon," and I got told I was crazy, like, that's not gonna happen. He's like, "Oh, like to say I was kind of right," and it did happen sooner than I thought. I didn't think it was gonna happen until next year, but they got me by a year.
There's one thing you can.
It was on your radar list.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's nothing crazy on my radar list within the industry. I mean, the only thing that's really kind of thrown me through a loop since that has been all the AI stuff.
Yeah.
not a fan.
No, I am not a huge fan either. So I anticipate seeing, AI, and Wizards has already talked about developing AI DMs for their online gaming.
The purpose of AI was to do the boring stuff so that we could create art. I know the AI is creating better art than I am. I'm like, damn it. My wife
Creating better art than mine.
went onto the thing and she was like, because I've got 12 books or whatever, and she was like, talk about samurais in the style of Ben Thompson from Badass, and it was just like it was like, please wait. Okay, here's a paragraph on Ii Naomasa. I'm like, God damn it! This is good,
Yeah.
dude.
I'm not the biggest fan of AI.
It was E.E. Naomasa?
No, I'm exaggerating.
Okay.
I'm hyperbolizing for emphasis.
Because I know who that guy was.
I know. I picked one that you would know.
Yuji played him in that movie.
I know. I'm going to try to get him on my podcast to talk about it.
All right.
Yeah. I've written about him. I just picked a samurai that I'd written about, and randomly, when if you ask me about samurai, that was the first name that popped into my mind was Ii Naomasa, who was a pretty fringe samurai from the Tokugawa era.
Well, for most people, most samurai are fringe.
That's fair.
It's a very niche knowledge topic.
Yes.
Sadly, because it is a very, once you get into it, you're like, whoa, it's a fascinating,
awesome, right?
fascinating world.
So if we turn the camera around,
He has a ton of.
we're sitting in an
real
armor
armor.
museum.
Yeah.
For samurai armor.
Surrounded by suits of samurai armor right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not like replicas, like real stuff.
It's very funny because I always get nervous handling it, like Brian, because we do some for our YouTube show. We'll talk about different pieces of samurai armor that Brian has, and I'll be helping him set up, and I'll be really delicate. I'm like, oh no, sorry, I bumped it against a thing, and he's like, Ben, it's designed to be hit with a sword. It's okay if you bump it against my table.
It's gone through 150 to 200 years of combat.
So I was like, it's 200 years old. He's like, you can shoot it with a gun. You can shoot it with an arquebus, and it'll deflect the bullet. You can. It's nice. I don't care.
Joe Rogan's got a samurai sword from like the 1500s, and he'll pull it down.
Amateur.
And he'll hand it to people. And he's like, yeah, it's like.
Yeah,
You got
one of those over there.
I got one too.
Yeah, but it's like you're the only other person I know that would be able to do that on a show.
I'm looking at a Naginata right now.
I also love like the Chinese.
It's
companies that are
7.5
selling-
feet long, but we can't show it on TV.
Have you
We
seen
wanna take it
the
down to the
YouTube
park.
abs for the Japanese the Japanese steel knives? So they're made in a Japanese style.
yeah.
And they're
They're
just,
cooking knives.
yeah,
too.
they're all
they're
they're all
cool.
super crap because most people don't know that Japanese steel is actually really bad steel, and that's
It's bad iron. It's
Yeah.
good steel.
well, yeah, bad iron. Well, and that's how the Japanese developed great sword technology.
Yes.
Because they dealt with very bad iron
Yep.
and had to work very hard to
Yep.
develop great swords.
That is 100% correct.
And you're looking like this is made with Japanese iron. You're like, oh. You guys are using some of the worst material to be just stamped out in a Japanese style.
They
looking-
took iron sand and turned it into surgical steel.
yeah.
Well,
That takes intelligence.
to be
yeah.
fair, there's some 4D chess happening here because the Chinese don't like the Japanese that much.
I know.
And
And some Koreans were in there too going, hey, you know what?
they won't be that sad if they can tarnish the name Japanese steel. It might not bother them that much if they can make the rest of the world think Japanese steel sucks.
Growing up in this area, I lived down in Tacoma in high school, having like Korean friends and Chinese friends and Japanese friends, and then all three of them are at the house at the same time. Just like,
Oh, that's going to be a party.
yeah, my Japanese friend comes in last, and the Korean kids and the Chinese kids staring at him like,
You should have been here first.
like
You're supposed to be on time,
I should have
right?
thought about this. He's like, yeah. He's like, their grandparents hate me. It's like, but that's, I mean, there's a big reason why in Korea, what is it, about 15 years ago, Samsung signed this big deal with a Japanese tech company and made, like, hey, we did this awesome, and people are like, just all of Korea stopped buying Samsung stuff, and Samsung was like, oh crap.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry.
The entire country's like, you did what?
Wait a second.
Like, I was gonna buy a new phone. I'm buying from LG now. Like,
Yeah.
oh, sorry about that.
I spent a month in China as an exchange student, and I was like, "Oh, do you like PlayStation?" They're like, "We like Xbox.
Yeah.
We don't play PlayStation."
And if you don't understand what
I'm
we're
just
talking
going to
about,
stop talking right now.
yeah, if you don't understand what we're talking about, should probably do a little more studying of global history.
Yes, or cultures in general.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cultures in general.
Yeah,
Cultures who don't like each other.
Yeah.
Ancient times.
I had going to Mongolia, it was hilarious getting there and just like seeing how much that nation since the Soviet Union fell, they don't have, because they were never part of the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union goes, well, we can get everything we need from you without giving you anything in return.
Yeah,
They were the worst of satellites for them, or they were the best of satellites, I guess.
Yeah.
But they have thoroughly embraced their history, and like you land at Chinggis International Airport, you get Chinggis beer, Chinggis vodka, and thank you the French.
You know what they're doing now? They're doing heavy metal
the Who
album.
The Who,
Yeah.
HU,
Yeah.
love them. And I, having been in a room with somebody that throat sings.
And they have motorcycle gangs
Oh, yeah.
now, too.
Oh, it is awesome.
We named our motorcycle gangs the Mongols, and now they've got their own.
Gotta look up if you've not seen them. The Who.
Yeah, they're good.
I've heard Brian talk about it. I've never listened to it.
They play traditional Mongolian instruments, but they're electrified.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and they do some
And it's
variation
metal.
of throat
Yeah.
singing. Yeah,
I do have to check this out. It is. I'll be totally honest that like it sounds weird when you talk about it. I've heard Snowdy talking about it of like, it's Mongolian throat singing with electric guitars. I'm like, I don't think that's for me. But I have a feeling I'm going to listen to it and love it.
I like listening to what is it? Finnish folk metal. Where they sing with a deep throaty voice, and they'll have a dude playing a violin down at his waist, and just heavy guitars and everything, and just like, oh, this is awesome. And you've got medieval metal that comes out of Germany. They're just running around in like chain.
The Viking
I
metal
love you guys.
stuff,
Yeah, Viking metal. I love all the. Metal is the coolest thing because they have a genre for everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
And
like
then
pirates.
in
Have you heard
Japan,
of
they
pirate
have baby metal.
Yeah. Do you like
So
Hailstorm?
I love that somebody was trying to make fun of baby metal and Rob Zombie stood up for him. Like, no. Like, I've seen them live and they're just.
Forget about it.
Breaks your brain. You're like, I have no clue why this works, but it's so effing much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
You're just like.
I have not seen them live, but I've seen many videos of baby metal, and I'm a big fan.
Yeah, my best
all.
friend, who would be super jealous sitting here right now, but sadly, the year we started the library, he took his own life. Great guy. He's part of the reason why the library exists. Huge nerd. His wife is Japanese, and his daughters, of course, are half Japanese. And giant fan of the Japanese culture. He went over there on as a Mormon.
Oh, okay.
And then came back ex-Mormon.
It's funny. That happens a lot, actually.
Also, hated bicycles. After 2 years in Tokyo, able to go anywhere via bicycle.
I don't ride bikes anymore. I'm not Mormon. I'm married to the Japanese lady. I'm Shinto now, honestly.
Oh, that's funny.
We were looking to get into shape. I was like, "Hey, Alan, you want to ride a bike?" He's like, "No." He's like, "I'll do anything else." But he goes, "I spent 2 years riding a bike in Tokyo. I don't ever want to ride a bike again in my life."
Oh, that's funny.
He's like, "You know how many times I was almost murdered by Japanese
Taxis?
Yeah." But yeah, He was huge into random metal. He loved baby metal. We went to see Amon Amarth. I went to see a bunch of different metal stuff with him. Also took him to go see South African group, not metal, Diantward.
Gosh.
Rap over EDM.
Right, yeah.
That was a show that you were not ready for.
I fully believe it, yeah.
The entire show, there were dancing penises ejaculating on the screen behind them the entire show.
I think I'm going to skip that.
So that was what I was
But
going
they
to
were smiling.
I've seen enough.
They were smiling at the
quit.
cartoon ones with that. And they were different colors, and they were running around in like Pikachu onesies and stuff. And I was like, "Why is this so entertaining?"
What is happening?
It was the most fat.
By the way, we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
Well,
if you
Dave got a little sidetracked.
if you've ever done
There will be no dancing ejaculating penises in
None of that.
the Lost Crown of the Lich King D&D modules available now on Kickstarter for $5.
but if you
None
want
of
to
that
write
will
your
not
own,
even exist.
But if you
write your own.
Look, if you back us for $5,000 on the Kickstarter, I will write you your own little one-off about it, and Brian will draw it.
Brian will not draw it.
I'll draw it. I think
Okay, Ben will draw
I'll draw it. Wait, I think I can draw
Ben's
it.
like, I will get AI
I
to
think I
do
can
it.
make it. Yeah. Hey Google, draw ejaculating multicolor.
Hey, AI, draw. Can you?
Also, write the module while you're at it.
Yeah.
Just find it and make it good.
Who's on first, Liberace? Oh my gosh! Should we just call it some day now? I think it's getting a little off the rails.
It is. So, you guys are on Kickstarter right now.
We're on
Yes.
Kickstarter currently.
What's the name of the
It is The Lost Crown of the Lich King, and
It's a
they're-
series.
Yeah, that's the name of the series. So it's
and I know I've had a good luck just searching 99-cent module.
99-cent adventures. Yeah, if you just go to like Kickstarter.com, that's my handle on there. So /profile/99-cent adventures. There's a QR code on this picture. I don't know if it's easy to pick that up off your. I'll just do this. There's a QR code on here somewhere. I don't know. I don't know how this works.
I'll link it down after the show.
That's probably
cool.
a much more effective way of doing it
It's much more gooder, yes.
than waving the thing in front of you.
I like that.
But yeah. I mean, they're fun. They're fun. We're done with one. The first draft of number 1 is finished already. We're promising delivery on all of them by this time next year, by April.
So you're going
next
to put them out one at a time?
We're going to release them one at a time. Yeah.
Okay.
All the covers are done. All the back covers are done.
No.
About a third of the interior art for all of them is done. So we're in good shape.
Yeah. The first one, Module 1, is done and ready to go out. We want to have it kind of done. I think we promised it by July 1. And what we want to do with it is, I think that the text is all good, the maps are good, the art's done, but we want to get it all play tested, right?
Yeah.
And so we've play tested it ourselves using like the pre-draft version. Now we've got it all written down, we're getting it laid out, we're going to send it off to, we've got a couple different groups of people who are going to play test it. I'd like to send it to you if that's all right,
Absolutely.
to have
Yeah,
you take a look
please.
at it. And just get feedback on stuff of like, hey, this one's too hard, this is too easy, or whatever. Here's an idea for this, here's an idea for that. We want it to be final by July 1, but we need to get that one out now so that people have enough time to look at it. And so then we're going to be, but 2 through 5 are at least half done with the writing already. So it's funded, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's at a space right now where we're very far along on it. So, we had been talking before we started recording about offering print versions of these, and that'll be the plan eventually, is to do kind of a print on demand thing. You were talking Drive Through RPG does a good thing with that. But we didn't want to promise any of that with the Kickstarter. We didn't want to overpromise anything that we couldn't deliver. So our dream scenario is we email a PDF or upload a PDF somewhere, and if you want the physical versions, you deal
The nice
directly
thing
with.
about drive-through is they can just download straight through drive-through as well.
Exactly. Yeah, you can do the
That's what we
downloads.
want.
Downloads
Yeah.
99 cents. You want to buy the print version? It's whatever they charge you for it. And that would be a good way to do it. And but we didn't want to promise any of that as part of the Kickstarter because we didn't want to have to manage it ourselves.
Yeah.
But everything's in good shape, and it's going to happen.
You've been decently successful with this one. You've gone over what you requested, which is always, awesome. And, I've seen people like, I'm doing a module. I want $50,000. I'm like, nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
We argued about this because I was like, because Brian was like, oh, I think we should ask for 5, and I was like, I don't know, let's ask for $2,500. Like, let's ask for half of that, and then he was like, no, we'll get it, because one of the things that we're offering on the Kickstarter is the original art.
And that was Ben's idea,
Yeah.
and not mine.
But
and,
I mean, there's still.
And he was right.
There's none of the small pieces left, but there's still big pieces. There's still covers available, and like those are the only things we're mailing. Is like if you buy it back at a certain level, Brian's going to sign the art and mail it to you.
Yep.
Yeah, and then I backed for the library at one of the small pieces, just what we could afford to help back with. But I love that. I mean, I love the idea that it's $5 gets you 5 modules, and that is a long-term amount of gameplay for any group. I like the idea that you're starting off that first level in a less than heroic way. You're giving advice for new GMs, because D&D Wizards has talked about this. We're sorely lacking DMs, and part of that I put down to is how books are being put out right now. Because every book that's being put out for D&D, not even just WotC, it's WotC's doing it, other people are doing it. There's a ton of player-focused stuff, like, hey, here's new classes, here's new races, here's new this, and it's just so
What's
much.
for the Dungeon Master?
Yeah. And that's the thing is, for 50 years, everybody's like, oh, we need to figure out how to, get the player to buy more. Well, by doing that, you're pushing GMs out of wanting to GM because you're...
Oh, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, no, hang on, we're playing with just these 4 books. Sorry. And that's something new GMs don't understand, that they can, or they have to limit what players can play.
Yeah.
And not only that, when I first started, I was a horrible Dungeon Master.
But it doesn't matter, as long as you're having fun, right? It doesn't. You don't have to know all the rules to run it.
And it took me years to figure out, hey, everyone's supposed to have a good time.
Yeah.
This is fun for everyone.
Yeah.
And let's have a good... Now, I hope, I'm a good Dungeon Master.
Yeah. I always like to talk to people about, I'm not the GM for you. And that goes for everybody, because I'm not the GM for every player out there. That game, D&D is not the game for everybody. You as a player is not the player for some GMs. You've got to find the right group, the right game, and the right GM to play with. And if you do, hang on to them and have fun.
Takes a little bit of time, too.
It's hard to find groups, too. And like one thing that kept coming up is like, D&D is kind of having a big resurgence, and role-playing games in general are having a big resurgence in the last, probably 10 years now. But, but something that came up a lot when we were talking to people about this at Emerald City Comic Con, which is people are like, well, I want to get into playing, but it's daunting, right? There's so much stuff, and there's so much, and there's always expectations.
That was a lot at
and you don't need to. It's just if you and your friends want to start playing, you don't have to have ever played the game to try to run it. You read the book, you got your friends who don't know what they're doing, you play it. Like I've been doing this since the mid 90s, and like there are still times where I'll be like playing something and I'll be like, dude, actually, I think we've been doing this wrong the whole time. And actually, I think it's like this, and oh shoot, and that's okay as long as you guys are having fun. Who cares?
Yeah, I had changed a rule in D&D 3 early on, and I had forgot that I did it, and go play with a new group, and they're like, "Wait, that's not how that works." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, you're right. I forgot. I hated how this worked, and this is how I do it." They're like, "Oh, okay." And like they were cool with it. They were just really confused the first time I asked them to make a roll, and I'm like, "Okay," and they're like, "That's not how that works."
And so that first module that we were talking about, I think that's like a good entry point for a DM, because the characters are pre-generated, so you as the DM will have already read the character sheet, and they're not going to surprise you with anything weird if you just hand out the character sheets. Also, no weapons, armor, or equipment. Level 1, so there's no too much weird stuff they can throw at you. It's not just like, they're not going to surprise you with like, actually, I can fly for 5 minutes per day, so I'm just going to fly up there and get the thing, and your quest is over now, right?
Yeah, you can't do that.
Right,
and that's why when I play like superhero games, I'm like, okay, I need to prove your powers.
Yeah.
Time travel stuff unless you can really justify it to me.
Of course.
And my favorite one was a guy who goes, okay, here's my thing for time travel. I've come back in time to warn myself that I'm going to die in the future. And the entire living room of people go,
because I'm going to kill you right now.
Everybody's like, we're all going to die in the future, idiots. He's like, wait.
That's that's funny.
He did not get his he did not get his time travel powers.
See,
That was in game. He comes back. You're gonna die in the future. We're all gonna die in the future, idiot. Oh,
You'd be a good trial lawyer. Yeah. You missed your calling, Dave.
When I was in college, I was on the debate team, and the dean of the law school where I was at kept bugging me. He's like, "So what are you going to do with your history degree?" And I was like, "I have no clue." He's like, "You're going to go to law school, right? Because that's actually one of the largest feeders into law school's history degrees."
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's law, history, and anthropology like have the two most amount of writing. Over like English is like the fourth most amount of writing.
Okay.
It's like history, anthropology, like political science, and then English. So like history is like the number one feeder into law school. And he was like, "Hey, you're gonna come over to go do law." He's like, "Man, I want to see you as a trial lawyer." And I was like, "But I don't want to do all the work that leads up to being a trial lawyer. I don't want to have to do all the research. I don't want to have to." He's like, "Oh, that's why we have paralegals that we He's like, "No, I've got to be the newbie. I'm going to have to spend 5-6 years." He goes, No. I'm like, "Oh yes, I understand how this goes. I don't want to live that life."
But you could have been good.
I probably could have been. I love semantics. I'm the guy like, "Okay, you're in a room with a table and a saw, no doors. How do you get out?" Well, I cut the table in two, so I take the two halves, I put them together. Now they're whole, and I get out through that hole. And they're like, "What? That's not how that
It
works."
smells a little different.
Yeah, well, I've got an intelligence of 4 in that character. He doesn't know better.
So
One hole's the same as another.
So your history degree doesn't rhyme up with your English degree, which is like, oh boy.
but yeah,
So after this series of 5 is done, and I do love the availability to get original art. That is super cool.
Yeah.
Is there a plan to do another series?
Oh yeah.
Eventually,
We got 3 of them already kind of rounded out.
Yeah, we've been thinking about it. We got a good friend who does nothing but text us about what adventure should be in book 2.
Nice.
You got to do this. Do like a 7 Samurai one. That'd be dude. I haven't written module 1 yet. Isn't done.
Now, Ben,
don't talk to me about 8 yet.
Do you want to give people some teasers at all?
Sure, we could.
Yeah.
Why don't you give them some teasers, and I'm going to refill this.
For the second
This
series?
tankard.
Yes.
Or for the first series? Because we haven't really talked about the first series either.
Well,
True.
Ben, why don't you run them through the first series real quick, and then give them a teaser on the second series,
Okay.
and then we'll call it a day. How's that sound?
All right.
That sounds good because we've
Okay.
talked about the starting off with nothing, and I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah, and that's a fun. So that was a thing we were talking about with new DMs and how to like help new DMs. Like it's kind of a. On the one hand, it's contained, but on the other hand, it's kind of daunting for the players and for the DM to be like, okay, you're in a big forest and you have nothing. What do you want to do, right? So we try to have a lot of notes for the DM in there of like, all right, here's like the few things. Here's some prompts you can give the party if they're stuck. Here's the things they got to do. They can do whatever weird stuff they want to do. They end up at this town. If they go north, they go to this town. They follow the river, they go to this town. They go down this thing. They're going to end up at this town but you want them to feel like they're in this big creepy forest. But it's like kind of a battle between you have to give the players a lot of options and feel like they have a lot of choice, but you also have to contain it, not just for the DM, but because it's like beyond the scope of what we're writing to have it be like there's 12 different towns, and if you go north, you get to the mountains, and if you go east, you go to the forest. That's how I like to DM. The party was just like, let's go to the mountains. Okay, well, let's see what happens in the mountains. Let's see what's up there. Gnolls, brown dragons? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm the type of GM that I love to read through modules and get ideas, but when it comes down to it, I just pull things out my butt.
Yeah.
I've got along the path I have start like couple ideas, getting them to the middle, and then I've got the end. Everything in between is I have nothing planned out how you're going to get there.
I love running games like that. That's how I love it. But it's
But it's taken me years to get to that point to be able to do that.
Sure, and you can't. I can't put that in a book, right?
Correct.
Like I mean, I could put it in a book like this, but it's going to have a lot of. There's going to be a lot of text in there of things that the players will never see, right?
Yeah.
But to your point, like there's 5 modules, and each one has kind of like an NPC in it, and this is like a greatest hits of like NPCs I pulled out of my butt that the party ended up loving. So I just include one of them in every one. It's like, all right, you're gonna go meet Brapple. He's a frog dude. He looks like a tree frog. He's got like a little staff. He wears this little cloak. He's the only word.
He's like if Yoda and the DM Dungeon Master from the cartoon had a baby.
Yes. So he's got a little wand of cure light wounds that he cures people with, and he said the only word he says is brapple. It's a tonal language.
We have a picture of Brapple.
Okay. It's a tonal language, so all he says is brapple, brapple, brapple. But if you don't, it's a mixture of like facial expression and tonal, so nobody can speak it. Brapple, 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 brapple. Okay, Grapple, get in the boat. You're coming with us. All right. Now he's with the party. Yeah, he's like a little druid guy, but
it's funny. He doesn't look Druish.
He helps the party out. He does some cool stuff.
Joke never gets old. Thank you, Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks is my hero.
Yeah, he's great.
Spaceballs, one of the all-time greatest movies.
I'm not excited for his new TV show. There's doing a History of the World Part 2, and it looks like his name's on it, but looks like
he ain't in it.
Yeah, it doesn't. The previews don't look all that funny.
I didn't see the previews. I saw they were doing it, and I was like hesitantly optimistic. But
I saw some previews, and I was like, oh, this looks like a bunch of people doing ad lib. In the spirit of Mel Brooks.
Improv amateur Mel Brooks night.
Yeah. I was like,
oh, sadness.
We don't want to do that.
The Drunk History Show, I think, was way more fun.
That was a fun show.
Yeah.
I invented Drunk History. Did I tell you that last time?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, I invented Drunk History. I for real invented Drunk History. So when the first I had done Badass of the Week since started Badass of the Week in 2004, and then in 2008. Badass was going to be came out as a book, and it sold something like 100,000 copies, or it was doing really well, right? The way they described it to me was that like I had a chance of being the last number on the New York Times bestseller list, but it was like there's a couple books around that level, and they didn't pick Badass. They picked one that had a more acceptable title. And I don't know if that's true or not, but it has sold very well over the years, and they were going to option it into a book. And I was talking to this production company about turning Badass into a book. And I was like, I just want to do history stuff, but I want it to be like, I don't want it to be like a history text. I want it to be like Julius Caesar over beers. And then they were like, cool, we want to move forward. We're going to get these hosts to do it. We're going to do this. We're doing all these things. We're about to sign the contract. They're like, actually, this isn't going to work for us. And then they didn't do it. And then a month later, they announced that they were going to release a new show called Drunk History.
Nice.
So I literally, and then they've never had me on the show. I keep emailing them like, can I be on the show at least? And they're like, you're not really a good fit. I'm like,
well, I invented the History Channel, and I had an old.
I gave the Drunk History guy the idea a month before he had it officially.
Business partner.
I can promise you. This is the only thing that I'm bitter about in my professional career. And all will be forgiven if they just have me on this freaking show.
Can I be on it too? Because I like that stuff. I like drinking and I love history.
You ever watch it? Like, dude, I could drink all those guys under the table. They're all just like barfing after like a drink and a half.
I know, they're all pussies. And they don't have the library that I have either.
We could just, every week do one of these, and we could just do our own version.
Yeah. Let's do it. I'll talk about
we'll
Inamasa right now.
We'll just pre-record them, and then I can put in silly titles and graphics.
We could film it over at the Fifth Avenue Tavern or the Kona Kitchen. It'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
UG could act it
I'm a big history nerd. I think both of you are at least sizable history nerds.
Sizable.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. I'll bring in my random World War II current war memorabilia. I have pieces of Saddam's palaces in my house.
Awesome. Oh, cool!
That's awesome.
Oh, I knew you were cool.
I have a tile off of a building that I wasn't supposed to bring back called the Blue Dome.
You just told that to the world.
Oh, that's fine. I may or may not have brought 3 or 4 of those tiles back through other people that they have homes here in the Pacific Northwest. So I have one of the tiles from the Blue Dome. Anybody that's been to Baghdad knows what the Blue Dome is.
There's a YouTube video I really like. Speaking of World War II memorabilia, there's a YouTube video I like, and this dude goes into his office and he's like, "Check it out! Turns out my grandpa was real into Wolfenstein." Remember those games? Everybody's like,
I got my love of history through my father, who he was born during the war, and when he graduated high school in 1961. So he had jobs and stuff through high school, and he would go to like yard sales, and he was buying all kinds of uniforms and stuff off of
cool.
guys,
Yeah.
soldiers. And then when he went to basic in late 1960, so he went to basic training in December 1961. So while he was gone for basic training, his sister sold all of his stuff.
Oh my God!
So he had Lugers he had bought off guys. He had
Madonna.
just complete like he had Soviet uniforms, German uniforms, Italian uniforms. All this stuff that GIs had brought back, because the guys that lived in his area all went different areas. He didn't have hardly anything Japanese, just because where he was from, those guys all went to Europe. He didn't almost nobody went in the Marines, so he didn't have
no Arisaka rifles for him.
No, well, that was fine. Those were horrible rifles. Oh, those were so bad.
And a Nambu pistol.
Japanese did so many things good, but firearms in World War II and tanks were not their.
I know.
There were things that they did very badly, and that rifle particularly was just not good compared to what everyone else had. It was good compared to what they had prior, but
They did have 3 different heavy machine guns, which was crazy, which all different calibers. So if you want to make something really complicated, just talk to Japanese people, because they will figure it out.
They were having a hard time.
You'll
with
take
it.
something and you just make it more complicated, and they have a gift for it.
yeah.
Yeah, and it was like a big thing in towards the end, Okinawa and stuff oh, we've got our machine guns, we're ready to hold the line, and they get their ammunition refill, and
It's not the right caliber.
this is for the other one.
Well, we've got a Type 1 gun, but we got Type 2 ammo.
Throw these at the guys.
Maybe if we throw it in a big fire pot, it'll and aim it towards them.
Yeah.
The rounds will cook off and do nothing.
Did we drill that into the ground yet?
Okay. Well, this has been a whole lot of fun. Please look them up on Kickstarter. The adventures are going to be a blast. It starts off in a really cool way.
Yeah, and it works up to like a lich battle. So it works up into. So actually, it's kind of fun because in the first one, you're captured by these gnolls, and their leader is like this big badass like barbarian warrior gnoll person, and I give the stats in module 1 for the last guy for the gnoll chief, right? And then in module, and it's unwinnable, right? Gnolls are a matriarch, or hyenas are a matriarchal society, so I have the gnolls be matriarchal as well. And so she's just like this badass, like 10th level barbarian. The stats are just bonkers for these first level characters. And it's like, if they decide they don't want to run away from the gnolls, they run into this, and she's just gonna like headbutt them all successively unconscious, recapture them, and then their cart will break again or whatever.
Either you get new characters or your cart breaks again.
Yeah, or I think that I have them where they stop and they get tied up to a post and they get a chance to like break their bindings or whatever. But
did you figure out that fighting the gnolls while you're butt naked is not a great idea?
It's bad.
It's bad news.
Okay.
But then in module 5, you kind of like working up towards this big battle at the end. But you before you can fight the Lich King, you gotta get revenge on these gnolls. And you go back, and it's the same stat block.
Yeah.
But now you're much higher level, and you can handle it, and it's not.
Ah!
I mean, it takes all of you together. Hopefully, it's a hard boss fight, but also the thing that was super impossible at level 1. Now you get to go back and face him again. And you're like, all right, now maybe we can take this.
So once you get to like level 10, things kind of get really tough in 5e to really scale for GMs.
Yeah, I don't like. So I think we end at like 7 or 8. And
Yeah.
the Lich is like way beyond that, but I don't want to. Well, I guess I'll give a little bit of the story away, but like, I don't want to give too much.
It's a demi-lich.
It's a demi-lich, and we may end up having to scale it back a little bit. We're not sure. I don't want to. What I want to do is kind
Is
of.
that Demi Moore's final form?
Yes.
That's Demi Moore. It's not a demi-lich. It's a demi-lich. No, but we're going to basically plant stuff throughout the adventures to like really kind of cue you into being able to defeat this thing. So like we're going to give you all the stuff you need to defeat this one.
Yeah.
All 5 of these modules are just building you up for this one final battle with the Lich King, and so you will have enough stuff that this challenge 18 creature suddenly is not as daunting as it would have
Yeah.
been because you have the things you need.
Well, that's the cool
specifically
thing with
to
the
beat it.
module is like you can give like you can help the GM because in a normal game, like, oh god, how do I the challenge ratings don't scale well.
Yeah.
Right around, they start kind of breaking around level 7 in 5th edition, I've discovered. So in a module, you can help the GM with that.
Yeah, I
so
think-
you can go much further if you're following modules.
Yeah, we're going to end. I mean, this ends at 7 or 8 because
Yeah.
I was talking about it earlier, but I don't like the high level adventures where it's like my spell list is 6
Yeah.
pages and
Like, hang
every
on, what am I gonna-
combat round takes 15 minutes because nobody knows what they can do. Everybody's getting bored because they're like, oh, I'm going to take my 8 attacks and then I got 3 bonus actions and all this stuff. And
See,
you're
I
like,
find that as a challenge. I'm going to make them work for it.
Yeah.
You guys really need to
Yeah.
play. We on the channel we've been playing on Wednesdays. We've been playing Dungeon Crawl Classics. And
Yeah,
the
that's
spells
the-
are
Oh, that
so
sounds
bonkers.
so fun.
The spells are so bonkers because what you roll to see, like, oh, it's my first level fireball. It does no. At first level, I have a fireball. I roll, okay, my luck bonus, my personality bonus, that's like your charisma. And then you can get some other bonuses. You're like, okay, 12 or less, you fail. And if you fail as a wizard, you lose that spell for the day, and negative things can happen. And if you roll a 1, it could just, the fireball goes off right there and just nukes
Just
your
blows
party.
you up.
Exactly. But it could also get like crazier. Like, if the cleric comes over and blesses you, hey, you're going to get +2 on your stuff. All of a sudden, oh, hey, now my fireball does even like
that like
it's-
exploding sixes deal,
Oh,
right?
it gets super bonkers.
Not
Like,
only did I kill all the monsters, I wrecked the building too.
yeah.
oh yeah, like and then every one of our we get into all these little fights and we almost die, but like major like big baddies come in. It's like, okay, this is probably going to wipe out the crew. Hey, we had to get charm. Nat 20, boop, and the thing just walks off. Like,
Yeah.
the GM's looking at us like, are you serious? He's like, you guys almost died to freaking toads, but you charmed something that should have just walked over and stomped on you.
We want to kind of find a balance there, right? So we don't want these.
Thank you, Ben. I'm glad you
We
said
don't
it
want
first.
we don't want these to be character. These aren't character assassinators. So the idea, like, so this isn't Tomb of Horrors, right? Like,
The swinginess on magic is in 5th ed there isn't that swinginess in magic.
yeah,
Which is-
I like being able to
is
cast higher
kinda
level,
nice.
like get a spell, and you can use a higher level spell to amplify it. Like, I like that. But what we are hoping for as the final thing with this is like we have succeeded if every gaming session that everybody gets together, there's a moment where you're in the middle of a combat or a situation that's like kind of difficult, and everybody's kind of sitting there doing this with their character sheets, like,
Yes.
and everybody's kind of looking at each other like, I don't know how we're going to get out of this one. Do I have any weird items or anything in here? Like that's kind of the moment that I love as the DM when you're like, all right, well, what are you doing? And everybody's like, should we do this? I don't know if we should do
Yeah,
that.
it's fun.
I found this key at level 2. I've held it for a while. There's a door over there. I'm going to try it.
Right, something like that, right? Just looking around, everybody's just kind of sitting there like, I don't think we're going to make it out of this one, you guys. But then they make it through by the skin of their teeth or whatever. But like, I'm not going to be happy if it's just like, yeah, congratulations, buddy. Like, you killed the whole party, like, battle 3. Like, it's just... I want the party
the
to...
module is you can start over.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I want
let's try again.
I want the party to survive by the skin of
Everybody
their teeth.
roll up new characters.
I want the party to survive by the skin of their teeth. I don't want the module to just be 5 gnolls just, like, beating a dead body. Like...
Well, have you seen the way some of my parties roll?
This guy's still alive a little bit. He's still moving.
Put those dice in the dice shredder. Yeah, get some new ones. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
ain't working for
that's
us.
that's my $1 million Kickstarter idea. Is they have those dice towers. You put the dice in the top and it rolls down at the bottom. It's a it's a dice shredder. So you put it in the top and it just goes like, and then just like dust comes out the bottom. That's what I want.
How many pieces came out? That's your roll.
You just throw it in on your way out the door.
Please dump your dehydrated polyhedrals over here. Your disintegrated polyhedrals.
You know, it goes right in the toilet and you flush it.
That's a plumber call. I don't want to.
Shredded plastic goes in the toilet. You pee on it and you flush it, and that's the end of that dice. You never have to look at that D20 again.
6 months later, the plumber's coming out like, so, What have you been doing to your poor toilet? There's a chunk of plastic at the end of that.
1-800-COLE-SEWER.
No, that's why you play at the pizza shop you were talking about.
And there you go. That's at every table. You got the backside of the napkin holder is a dice shredder. Like, what's this? Don't put your fingers in there.
Don't tell the pizza guys that we brought them. Did I hear that pizza shredder? I hear that dice shredder again.
Dice shredder / napkin holder.
Nothing's
every table.
nothing's happening back here. We're not flushing dice.
See, and then you make money, but you sell more dice. And what's even crazy is you sell dice that are weighted poorly. So everybody wants to shred their dice. So they always roll like 3.
See, the
Not
mafia
a
is
1.
involved.
Yeah, that's the trick. That's the trick, right? If you're gonna weight your dice, you weight it to roll an 18. Because if you can't beat it with an 18, you shouldn't be rolling anyway. If it's always a 20, everybody's gonna start to think about it. If you're always rolling like a 17, 18, that's like good enough to get whatever you want most of the time. But
Earlier I
nobody's
said
gonna
I would
accuse you.
just roll dice for theater behind my GM screen. I got caught by a player in a one-shot one time because sometimes I'll set up a D20 on a 20 and on a 1. And it was like, and I'd lift up the GM screen. I'd show a D20 with a 1 on it. It's like, oh man, I totally flubbed that. And they were like, yeah. They get excited. We're like, oh man, that guy totally got you. And I lift up, show the D20, and nobody ever said anything about it before. This guy afterwards, he's like, did you just have a D20 on a 1 and a 20? And they were the same color. And I was like, yeah. He goes,
Yeah, he called you on it.
he goes, that is super clever. He goes, if the dice roll didn't matter, he goes, but if it ramped up the tensions, he goes, you just showed what made everyone at the table excited. I was like, it's easier just have them already set up. And I had them in different corners. I was like, oh man, I got to move those around, make sure that...
I had a buddy who would just like, his go-to move was, I got a walled up piece of paper here, but he would just be like, oh, it's 35, I think. It would still be rolling, and he'd cover it and be like, yeah, I guess that's a 31.
Ryan Freeling, if you were out there, you remember playing at my house in DC, Ryan Freeling would roll, and he would, as soon as he'd roll, he'd pick it up and go, I got a... And he would like go look down his character sheet and was like, no, okay, I know what your stats are. You had to roll a 23 on your die to get that. Like, there's no effing way.
I know.
We had an amazing. We were playtesting one of these, and there was some bar, and there was some. We have the bard, and he's the traditional bard, and he was trying to talk to the waitress at this restaurant or this bar or whatever. I'm not going to get into all the details of it because my players try to break the game. The idea when I was playtesting this was like, we're going to playtest this, and what I want you guys to do is to try to break the game and find the holes in it. So that's what they are.
My favorite thing to
they
do.
have taken that to heart, and they are trying to break the game. And my friend the bard was trying to talk to this waitress, and the half-orc ranger was trying to warn the waitress about the bard. And I was like, okay, you can do that. He's like, well, I'm going to tell her about him because he's like he's not a good guy. He's got a neck tattoo, all that stuff. Okay, you can talk to her.
A neck tattoo.
He's got a neck tattoo, and
Especially back in the day. That's super rare.
I'm not going to get into any of it. I'm not going to get into the specifics of anything that's happening here. We are playtesting and we are working, and I'm writing it off on my taxes. And and the bard is like, I was like, okay, well, all right, half-orc ranger, you can roll against the bard here, and it's a persuasion. So bard, roll it, and bard rolls. Oh, I got a 26. I'm like, all right, half-orc ranger, what's your charisma? -2. Okay. All right, so you got to roll a d20, subtract 2 from it, and beat a 25. How's a natural 20? Everybody's just like, yeah! And the bard's like, oh no, what? And I was like, totally works. He totally crushed it. He totally blocked the bar.
Nice. I always get frustrated with how badly people play. Like, I run into every once in a while somebody plays a bard well, but most people just play bard as the generic, you know, man slut bard thing.
Songwriter, but yeah, whatever.
So
The rock star version.
I had a name for murdering bards in groups, and sitting down, group of friends, played with a bunch, and I was like, oh, what are you guys making? And get to one friend, he goes, I'm making a bard. I'm like, really? Like, like my history with bards. He's like, yeah. So everybody's like, okay, I'm done. And looking at it, and this is D&D 3 or 3.5, and looking at everybody's characters, and I look at his. So he has, for his performance as bard, mime.
Oh, wow.
I says, okay, I will give you silent spell for free. But, so he wrote down what he had to mime for every one of his spells.
It's amazing.
And he's like, okay, I'm going to cast.
That sounds
and he
fun.
would mime it out. And everyone was like, oh, fuck, what did he do? Like, I don't know. And they'd get, the rest of the group would get panicked because they don't know what he's casting. And then he'd talk between, he's like, wait, are you a mime? He's like, yeah, I'm not performing right now. He goes, I can talk. He goes, I only don't talk when I perform. And they're like, yeah, when we probably need you to talk is when you're casting spells. Let us know what the F you're doing. And he would never tell him. He's like, okay, I'm going to cast. And he would mime it out at the table. It was great. And I had a list of all his spells. And he says, okay, I'm gonna. And I would just grab that list. Okay.
That's amazing.
When he drew his character, did it look like Robin Williams?
No, he looked like Marcel from Silent Movie. I love that the professional mime in that movie was the only person that had a line. So the movie Silent Movie, Mel Brooks movie. Marceau has one line.
Yeah.
And it's one thing spoken in the entire movie. Marceau goes, no.
My brother ran a fun bard one time.
I want to see more mime bards.
He was a Roman senator.
I want to see less.
He was a Roman senator. So he was like kind of a big, overweight, like balding, like.
But he's an orator.
But he's an orator. His bard performance was oratory, and he wore gold armor and carried a golden sword. Because it cost,
purple robes?
which cost 3 times the amount, and it was worse, right? The gold sword does like less damage, and the gold armor does, but he wore it because it made him look fancy, and he never drew his sword, and he would wear his sword and his robes and his senatorial outfit, and his bard performance was oratory, and he would just basically, like when combat would start, he would just yell at his party to do better, like, you get this, you do that. That was his like bardic inspiration.
You know what would have been
You fight harder, you fight for Rome or whatever.
What would have been a really cool character on that concept is part bard, but part like barbarian, and his sword is a wooden sword.
Oh, that would be cool.
So if he ever pulls out his sword is a wooden sword. So he'd been granted his freedom from being
As a gladiator. Yeah, he has his rudis.
Yeah.
So he's
That'd
got
be
his,
really fun.
That would be a really. I want to play that character. That
This
character
guy
would
is
be a
like
lot of fun.
He was like low dex, low strength, like medium con, just because he didn't want to die, but like high intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and it was all oratory. Yeah.
Some of my favorite campaigns have been the just roll 3d6 straight down and then build a character based off that.
Yeah.
And I ended up with a character with 3 intelligence, 18 charisma. So I became a sorcerer who couldn't speak.
A golden retriever.
We
A beagle!
we figured that Mother Nature just loved my character so much that she cast spells to protect him. That like he wasn't really a sorcerer. He just like
He's just like a druidic boy toy. There's some witch somewhere that's looking out for you.
he'd like point at things, lightning bolt.
I don't know. When you're cool, like just good things happen to you. You know.
And I did.
That's that charisma, bro.
Charisma's not a dubstep for a sorcerer. I was one that always refused.
Can you write that down, by the way? That's a good one. I'm going to bring it up more in cabin.
That's why I loved. What was the?
See,
the
when
game?
Casual conversation.
when I think 3 to 18 charisma, I think I'm 100% go paladin.
I go sorcerer. I go sorcerer who like then becomes like somehow the leader of the party and like. Because everyone's like, well, you got a good charisma, so you go discuss everything with him. And then, but he's a sorcerer, so he's like very like self-centered. So he's like negotiates. Okay, I'll my party will do this for 10 grand, and then I'll go back to everyone. It's like, okay, I got them up to 1,000 each. And there's 5 people in the party. Like, how do you always have better stuff than us? I don't know. Like, what is?
Because I'm just so cool.
Yeah. And then the players are like, why do you always jip us? I'm like, do you not understand I'm playing a chaotic good character? And you put me in charge to go negotiate how much gold we get.
That's a thing that like doesn't come up that much because whenever people like a lot of people when they roll their characters they all like anything under than a 14 is a character flaw for them. But like it's so fun to have negative modifiers to it.
Love having
at least one ability score. You got it right.
I love
Of
having
course,
it, yeah.
because that that gives you some kind of hook too.
Yeah.
That's why, like Deadlands. Love Deadlands because you have
Did a
to
lot of
have-
art for Deadlands.
Oh, really?
Yes,
I have like every book for Deadlands. So my 3 favorite games are D6 Star Wars, Deadlands, and Palladium. Those are my 3 favorite games of all time. I love that Rifts is basically the same game from 1989 to today. You can pull out old books.
Yep.
It has changed a little bit. Like you buy the Ultimate Edition, the rules are a lot cleaner than the 1989 edition. But you can grab any of those original game books.
It still
and
works.
play them. Yeah. And it is definitely, because it is such a massive world, people are like, oh man, it's so broken. I was like, no. You can't pull Atlantis stuff and put it in Free Quebec. And you can't pull Free Quebec stuff and put it in Russia. Like, they don't mix. They really don't. Like, they're designed as little sub-worlds. A great GM can combine them, can mix them, but it is a lot of work. In fact, one of my favorite games I ran was a year long just using tons of different Palladium stuff. We started out in... so you got SDC and MDC. I don't know if you've played Palladium stuff, but SDC is standard damage, MDC is mega damage. So like one MDC is like 100 SDC.
Is it a way of doing like vehicle combat?
So
It's been
you get
25 years since I played any
Yeah.
Palladium games.
So yeah, MDC stuff is like rail guns and like your mech armor and
D6
vehicles.
Star Wars had something like that,
Yeah.
like different scales. Of
Yeah,
like,
so, yeah.
being
And-
shot with a starship cannon
exactly.
is like different than being
It
shot
was-
with a blaster.
I love that. It was like it's easier to you can take a blaster and hit a starship. It's really easy to hit, but it's really hard to damage.
Yeah.
Which I loved how Star Wars did that. So, but with Palladium they did it SDC and MDC. So like machine guns do SDC damage. Humans take SDC damage. MDC, like one MDC is like 100 SDC. So a railgun shot is
Okay.
like 20 MDC. That's 2,000 hit points, and a normal human has like 25.
Right, yeah,
It's like-
yeah.
So they don't mix well.
So he's gone.
Yeah,
No walking
exactly.
away.
So we started out in a very
It's
SDC.
it's the North Korean dude that got strapped to the anti-aircraft gun.
Yeah,
He won't be down for breakfast.
He's not walking away from this one.
yeah.
He's not going to be.
There's nothing left to bury. He vaporized.
There's no way to bring him back for the
So
sequel.
we started out in an SDC campaign, and I kept it very localized. So they catch up to the bad guy, and he sucks them into fantasy Palladium. So whatever guns and armor they have is what they have. So they were like, why are we keeping track of bullets? They're everywhere. Well, now we're in.
Now you're
you know,
suddenly that
Yeah,
book
oh
with the
God.
Marines that go back to ancient Rome.
Exactly. And it's like, oh God, we don't, the ammo we have on us is the ammo we have on us. So a couple of them develop magic powers, some got magic weapons, and they catch up with the bad guy, and then they go to Heroes Unlimited. And they develop superpowers. Some of them still have magic, but they get...
That's fun.
And then they catch up with the bad guy, they get ported into space, into Aliens Unlimited, where they start to mutate into aliens, but they have superpowers and magic. And then all of a sudden, when they mutate into these aliens, they actually now have MDC naturally. So because they have like carapace and blah blah blah, so they can take higher amounts of damage. So then we go back to the Rifts world. I can throw whatever I want at them because they've got laser eyes and stuff. And
Yeah. That's kind of what we're thinking with the the Lich thing, right? Because
Yeah.
Demi-Lich is a challenge 18,
yeah,
but like one of those things is like he's got a sonic attack that reduces you to 0 hit points if you fail a save, which is an
Yeah.
incredibly difficult save. But what if you know this and you can create some kind of blocker against sonic damage?
Yeah.
Suddenly, his best attack is useless against you. At the end of the day, like, you can give away enough stuff. I don't want it to give away so much stuff that it's a walk in the park.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I want you to be beaten on this skull and not like,
Yeah.
not being immediately annihilated by it. And it would be a fun story at the end of like, we were 7th level and we beat a Demi-Lich.
yeah. Not enough people use liches. I think
Liches
they're-
are awesome.
Yeah.
Liches are awesome because they have a 18, 19 intelligence, so
Yeah.
you can be clever with them. And he's this floating head that and Demi-Liches are cool because a Demi-Lich is, a Lich is like a dude.
Not Demi Lovato.
Not Demi Lovato. You're running out of famous Demis though.
Yeah, Dave, you got to dig deep now.
Yeah. So
Levi's Demi jeans. Oh, that's denim. Never mind.
they're just dyslexic.
Demi-lexic.
Yeah, so
And I'm not the one drinking.
So a lich is just is a dude who like wanted is a crazy wizard who wanted to make himself immortal and did some weird processes to make that happen, and then he becomes a lich. But then a demi-lich is a lich who's been around so long that he either, for a variety of reasons, he's either like so old that he's gone crazy, or in the case of our demi-lich, he can't find his phylactery, so he can't feed souls into his phylactery, so his body decayed, and then he's just a head.
Just kind of floats around.
It's kind of a floating head, but like he goes more and more insane. So a demi-lich is actually weaker than a lich, even though he's older, because he's kind of gone crazy.
Yeah.
And
he doesn't have the access to his full might anymore because of either no access to his phylactery or no access to his faculties.
Right, yeah.
Or
yeah.
a little mixture of both.
Exactly. So yeah, he's kind of gone crazy and lost his body due to like he can't recharge his batteries because he can't find his phylactery. So that's one of the things you have to get to go after him. And it's a whole.
Did you ever play D20 Munchkin?
Yeah, I do like Munchkin.
No, I never have. I wanted to, but I didn't.
I have all the books for it. I have played it a ton. It's a blast because there's a random appearance table in there.
We have very intricate random encounter tables for every module because they're all set in like different environments. So we don't. 2 doesn't pick up at the end of 1.
Yeah.
And in some cases you don't even get. So like in some cases you don't like, especially the higher level ones, you don't get from like 6 to 7 in this module. If you don't, I think you will. Like we're gonna try to make it so you do. But if you don't, then like when you start the next one, it's like, it's been a couple weeks. You've had a couple. You can either do your own little one-offs in between, or like
exactly. You can either do do your own one-offs or do the between reels.
You jump. You now like it's the sequel. Now you're here. One thing I love to do with that is
2 years and you're grittier.
Yeah.
Tougher and grittier.
Yeah, and then I love doing that because I like asking the party what they've been up to. Right.
Yeah.
Like, you're level 7 now. Like
what have you been doing for the last 6 months with these characters?
What's your guy been doing? What's he up to? Why does he now have this new skill and ability and power? Right. Like
Which I think is more fun for character development, and it's more fun for the dungeon master too, because then you're getting character feedback.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's
and they'll be like, I'm working with my cousin who's doing this.
Yeah.
And now it's like, all right, he's got a cousin and we need to kidnap that guy.
well, I always love to I hate just you level up, you have this new skill. Like, what have you been doing?
Yeah.
So that's why I love like Star Wars and Deadlands is there's no leveling.
Yeah.
So if you want want a skill, you have to do something in game to get it. So that's why I love in Star Wars is you're traveling because. Unlike the newer movies where it's near instantaneous going places, there's time that passes in hyperspace. So that hey, you have 3 days to get from here to here. What do you do aboard the ship for those 3 days?
Yeah.
And okay, I'm going to work on this. Oh, hey, we're going here. I'm going to research what I can about the.
I'm going to read
planet.
this book, or I'm going to
exactly So when they get there, if somebody's actually been researching where they're going. They have bonuses to their streetwise. Hey, I'm going to practice lock picking. I'm going to practice this. Okay, hey, you get an extra pip in your lock picking skill.
Yeah,
and because it gives people. What is my character doing? Because we're so bad at talking about the downtime that happens with characters. But it happens, and it's gotten. I would say worse over the years because we want the games like, we can't have downtime. Make that
downtime. It could be fun.
Yeah,
if you get creative about it.
Yeah,
and you don't have it in video games as much anymore, right? You fight, you kill this monster, and then boom, you're level whatever, and you got the new powers and abilities, and we've kind of gotten used to that. But adventuring is a lot of downtime, right? Like,
absolutely.
If you're a D&D
now
guy,
there's a difference. Red Dead Redemption. They have it's all downtime.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a lot of horse riding in that
That's
game.
one of the greatest video games ever created.
Yeah, there's a reason why. I mean, it's like Red Dead Redemption 2. I mean, that game came out a number of years ago now, and still getting. I mean, there's still people playing the snot out of it on a.
Remembering to leave this here.
There's still people playing it live on Twitch right now. So I mean, so it's being creative as GMs to storytell that dead time and make people realize because like I was saying, we've gotten really bad at it's just everything in your stories, go, 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 go. It's kind of the same way with movies. Movies, we don't develop characters. So if you're not careful in your...
Not we, because I ain't making the movies.
True.
They.
Yeah. And the storytellers have to get back to building characters.
I agree.
I talk about it in movies all the time. My perfect example is a lot of people loved Rogue One. I didn't like it because they're so bad at connecting you to those characters. They don't spend any time actually connecting you to those characters. And when we play role-playing games, we have to get better at creating those characters.
I agree.
You want your players to not want their characters to die. You want your characters to be devastated that a character, did die and they have to roll a new character. But you also, don't want them so connected that they burst into tears at the table either.
Sure.
I've seen both lately. People that are just overly connected to a character that they've just rolled. It's like, well, we've not really built that character at all yet.
Yeah.
But as storytellers, when we're sitting down at the table, a role-playing game is a collaborative storytelling adventure, and it's getting everybody sitting there.
It's a storytelling game that people can interact with.
Yeah, and you have to use that downtime in real world or in the fake world that we skip over. Use it to build out. You're talking that in your modules, they may not directly butt up to each other. And I love the idea of them not butting up to each other because you can have people make up what happened during those time frames. Hey, we weren't partying together. My character went off and did X, Y, and Z. And then they spend a little time talking about how their character has developed. And it gives them agency over what their character is becoming.
Yeah,
versus this is what we've been doing, so my character has to be this. And I love bits and pieces like that. And I want to see them more. So
Ben and I are doing it.
Awesome.
So you're going to see a whole bunch of it, actually. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited.
You will fulfill, Dave.
I can't wait to get these in hand. I'm excited for people to get the art in hand. So I hope that all the people that have purchased art off of this one, once they get it in hand, your next round of doing these,
It's going to be...
generate some more excitement.
I agree. Yeah, that's what Ben and I are hoping and thinking forward to.
Because it is a unique way of doing it. Because some people have done, hey, one of our artists will draw your character in the game.
We've done that.
Yeah, and I like that. That's the only other art thing I've seen, and the library has made it into a bunch of games through items, or somebody actually had one of their artists draw me, and there's a NPC in a game called the Librarian.
Cool.
And so I find it really super fun because the library or myself or the wife are named in a bunch of RPGs now, and like me or the library are in game in a bunch of different stuff now.
That's fun.
And I was going to bring a game and I forgot to bring it. It just came out, an RPG called New Edo. That I thought you would have liked.
It's a good thing you're skinny, Benny. Went through that chair.
So the links to their Kickstarter will be down below, and hopefully, if you guys put it up onto DriveThru in the future, I will go back and update this in the future with DriveThru RPG links.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great.
yeah.
Thank you.
And
Yeah, we would love to have you look through everything too,
Yeah.
and
And
we'll
Dave-
send you the
yeah,
modules
Dave,
as we get to
yeah.
like the first drafts of them. I would love to have you take a look at it because you do look at a lot of this stuff, and it would be really valuable to get your input on
yeah,
it.
it is crazy the amount of things that I've read through over the years, and
I have to confess, I already wrote you into the credits as a thank you for looking through this because I didn't want to forget. So
Yes, Ben told me about this the other day.
I will delete it if you really don't want to look at it, but
I do.
you're kind of already on the hook.
Yeah, you're already on the hook there, Dave. You signed in without signing in.
Yeah.
oh, that's absolutely
You mentioned
fun.
it the last time we were here, so I wrote it down and I included it, and now you're...
Yeah.
Well, and the last time I was here, you were like, "Okay, we may do this," and he was like, "Okay, we're gonna do it."
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
it
I was
was-
very angry that I discovered the Kickstarter. I was like, how come nobody let me know?
Yeah, at the comic book convention.
Because
yeah.
we had launched it like 2 days. We launched it
Yeah.
2 days before. We'd come up with the idea 3 days ago. 3 days before, I was just like, let's just do it. Let's just do it and pitch it to anybody who comes by our comic book table.
Yeah.
And then you were like, okay.
And you came on the last day too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we were pretty busy because I mean, usually when we're at an event, everybody's like, "Oh, hey, can you come do this?" I'm like, if I go places, like I will try the very first day to like run through and see all the RPG based stuff. Like, hey, how you doing? Hey, you know me. Like, then run back. And then through the event, I'm like, okay, I have to go do this. I go and the new. I like the layout. I like the layout of the new convention center, but I also hate it because it's stacked.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it
yeah.
takes so long. We're on the 4th floor. To get down to the show floor
Oh, God.
is basement.
It's a
2.
horror show. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's like so.
It's like Mickey Rourke
Yeah.
in the movie where he plays the devil or whatever, and he's going down in the basement at the end of the movie.
They absolutely have to put stuff on that
Angel
wall.
Heart. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the end of Angel Heart.
And then the last day I was there, I was like, "Oh, we have access to the freight elevators. Why am I not using those?" And it was so much faster that last day to get around. I was like, "Hey, I gotta go." I had a whole bunch of meetings, and it was funny because Matthew Lillard has the Beetle and Grimm company. So Beetle and Grimm makes super cool, high-end versions D&D stuff. They're really awesome.
Cool.
And I was like, man, I kept telling all my volunteers, I was like, I gotta find a way to run into him. Last day, I'm at the elevators with one of my volunteers, and I was like, really, I haven't figured out how to get a hold of him. And I turned around and I was like, oh, hey, how you doing? I'm like, I need to talk to you.
That makes sense because I saw.
And it was like a scene out of a movie where you're like, man, how am I going to meet this person? And he just literally walks up, like right behind.
That's the greatest thing about conventions,
Yeah.
right?
I've met so many people.
That's how I met Larry Elmore.
Yeah.
Kevin Symbiote.
Yeah. And then, so I hop in the elevator to go down to the show floor, and I gave him an elevator pitch in the elevator about the library, and he goes, like the idea of it. He goes, I can't promise anything. Email, he gives me the email to email, and he goes, talk to my people, tell them that we met here, and see where we can go. I was like, sweet.
Nice. That's awesome.
Cool. It was literally just like out of a movie when you get somebody like, man, I gotta find this person, and they just walk up.
Yeah.
I had been saying it all weekend, and I was like, I looked at my volunteer like moments. Just,
That's great.
Seconds
amazing.
before he comes around the corner, I was like, I still haven't figured out how to talk to him yet, and he just walks right up, and I was like, oh, I need to talk to you.
I saw a woman at Comic-Con with a shirt that just said the name Matthew Lillard on it. It was a black T-shirt that had the words Matthew Lillard in white on it, and I was like, "That's freaking really random." Like of all the weird T-shirt, but that makes sense that he was there. I didn't know he was
Yeah,
there.
he was there. I think he was there 3 of the 4 days. Yeah, doing signings and everything. Seems like a nice dude. I mean, I've liked most of the things he's been. I mean, he was the perfect pick for Shaggy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you some real weird stuff. I have no clue who this person is.
Did you see the live action Scooby-Doo movies?
No,
Did you see
I
the
refuse
first,
to watch them.
Did you see the first Scream movie?
Nope.
Did you see Hackers?
Yeah, Hackers. Oh, please tell me you've seen Hackers.
I think I saw.
He's
it.
kind of like he's like a dude. He was like a comic relief actor of like the late '90s, early 2000s. Kind of like a surfer dude kind of vibe.
Okay, I might know who he is.
You've probably seen him in a bunch of things. He does all kinds of stuff. He's kind of like a comic reliefy character generally.
All right.
Candy Cat.
I'm Baba J.
That was a random thing
I'll tell you. I'll while you're doing that, I'll tell my favorite con story. I was at San Diego Comic Con, and I was in the back area. I got to go in the back because I was doing some panel there, and I was in the back and I was trying to get a soda, and I did
Was that when we went down there, or a different year?
I was sharing a table with Tom Zoller.
Okay, it was a different
yeah, I think
year.
this was
Yeah.
the first time I did it. I went down there and I was doing some stuff for Badass, and I was in the back area, and there was a vending machine, and I wanted to get a soda out of it. I got Dr. Pepper, and like it got stuck in the machine, and I had to get down on the ground and like stick my arm up in there to get the thing out, and I'm just kind of like on all fours, like under, and and then I hear like a, and I get Dr. Pepper and I pull it out and I look and I'm laying on the ground and it's Elvira in her full Elvira gear. And I'm just thinking like, wow, you were very formative to me when I was a child, when I was young. Like, I really like you. And
Okay, I recognize that guy.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
that's it.
well, okay.
Yeah, he's been in a ton of crazy stuff over the years. 13 Ghosts.
Yeah, he was in 13 Ghosts.
So the Scooby-Doo live actions, they nailed all the actors, but then there was supernatural stuff in it. It was like, no, it's the exact opposite. It's
the opposite of
Scooby-Doo.
Exact
Scooby-Doo.
opposite, because
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo was always a guy who's like, oh, it's Mr. Johnson, who's acting like a ghost.
Exactly.
Ghosts aren't real. That's the premise of Scooby-Doo.
Yeah,
This
that's the
stuff's
whole
never-
thing of Scooby-Doo.
There's no such
Exactly.
thing as a monster under your bed,
teaching
right?
Kids, it was teaching kids that monsters and ghosts weren't real.
If I would have gotten away with it, it wasn't
wasn't-
for you kids.
Yeah. But all the actors, like Freddie Prinze was a perfect Fred. Yeah, just everyone they picked nailed their parts. And the first one, even though there was ghosts and stuff, I love that Scrappy was the villain because I hated Scrappy Doo as a kid.
Everybody did. That's why they put it. That's why they did it.
Yeah,
Okay, that was after. See, I watched the 1960s Scooby-Doo
Well,
because I'm a child of the 60s.
I grew
and
up
70s.
on the reruns of that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll finish my Elvira story, which is that I'm laying on the ground. I'm looking up at Elvira, who was very formative to me as an adolescent, and I'm holding this Dr. Pepper with my arm still in this vending machine.
Would you like one?
And she's got her arms crossed, and she was the one that did the and she's in like the full gear and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's like frozen. And then she says to me, like in the Cassandra Peterson voice, not in the Elvira voice, like in her real speaking voice, she's like, "Well," and I'm like, "Oh shit, sorry, let me get out of your way." 'Cause she was just waiting for the vending machine. Like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry, I embarrassed myself in front of you."
You should have said, "Would you like one?"
Yeah.
While I'm in here.
It was. I don't know. I'm not smooth. I'm not smooth or clever. I just ran away.
I gotta go.
I gotta go.
I saw the inspiration for Boomerella.
This is the greatest. This is the greatest day of my entire life.
Goes back to our Larry Elmore meeting.
Yeah.
It is so funny to see the people at conventions that they're excited to get these signatures. They're excited to having met them, but they're so awestruck. They just like, oh, I got my. Well, I mean, I met Leah Thompson, which I had a massive crush on growing up in the '80s, and
Of course, because she's
yeah,
pretty hot.
and she was. So I got to meet her, got to have a picture with her, and it was at Emerald City like 2013, and I had to go into the military that morning, so I had to throw on my Army uniform, go do some stuff, and then changed in, threw on my Emerald City helper monkey uniform, and I get there, and I'm late.
Did you just say helper monkey?
Yes, like the show's The Big Grinder, and everybody in the shirts are
little
helper
green
monkeys.
shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Those people who are like, if you need anything, you come
I know.
find me, and then they're never around.
and
me.
then they're around and they're like, hey, I'm dying.
Help me.
I need to freaking.
So I'm late getting to my scheduled time to meet her.
Yeah.
And I'm apparently the last person she's going to see of the day.
Oh, God.
And so I get there, and they've informed her that I'm a volunteer and that I'm running late. She waits, and I get there, and she goes, "Oh, you are a volunteer here." I was like, "Yeah, I had to run down to do something for the Army, so I was in another uniform earlier." She's like, "Oh, you're in the Army," and then she comes over and gives me this big old hug.
Oh.
And she goes, "Thank you," and like I have a picture. It's like I have the biggest like.
yeah, of course.
My wife.
That's nice.
My wife afterwards is like, "How come you never smelled?"
Yeah, I'm a little jealous here, honey.
I even told her, I was like, "I've had a crush on you since Howard the Duck." But that's probably not the reference she gets.
Oh.
But it's the only reason actually, there's multiple reasons I love that.
I have a whole bunch of Howard the Duck stories. We're going to tell
I
that
love
next
Howard
time.
the Duck. It's the entire reason Pixar is what it is today.
For real?
Yeah, because
heard this
Lucas lost so much money on that movie. He actually ended up selling this little software thing he'd started through LucasArts to Steve Jobs,
Yes, he did. That is a true story.
and that was Pixar. Pixar was started at LucasArts and sold to Steve Jobs because of Howard the Duck.
Damn.
So next time we get together, everybody, we're going to talk about Howard the Duck stories because I have a whole bunch.
I love Howard the Duck. Such a zany character. Also breaks the fourth wall. Appeared in Conan.
Really?
Yep.
That was Howard the
With,
Duck's
with
first.
the, well, okay.
The movies
All right.
or the books?
So
'Cause
my
I think
buddy-
Howard
Comic
was.
book character.
My buddy Val.
Oh, in the comics, I was like, 'cause I
Yeah.
think Robert E. Howard was dead when Howard the Duck
it
was
was-
invented.
Yeah, it was in the comics, in the Marvel comics in the 80s.
So my buddy Val Merrick, hey Val, was the first person to draw Howard the Duck.
Really?
Yeah. So if
Val
you
is
look all,
Val is potentially going to be doing some art for
and
these modules.
by the way, Val is. I'm going to hire him to do some.
no, we've been talking to him about doing art
Yeah,
for this.
I know, and I've been talking to Val for a couple of months, and he called me up and he's like, "Hey, dude, I want to do some stuff."
Don't do that impression if it's going to make him not do art for us.
No, but because I love Val, and everybody loves Val. Yeah, and yes, Val, you're gonna do some art. I just have to get an assignment to you, and we'll get you going on it.
But he drew Howard the Duck.
He was the first person ever to draw Howard the Duck.
Love Howard the Duck.
Yeah,
And I don't care how bad people say that movie is. I love that movie because that movie is bonkers. It's so much fun.
okay, I don't love it. I saw it in a drive-through.
I'm going to keep us on message here, and I'm going to say that there are still large illustrations available on the Kickstarter
Yes.
for our project,
Yes.
and one of them might be drawn by
Might
the
be
guy.
by Val.
Might be by Val. So
Luck of the draw, huh?
You are
could-
correct, Ben.
we don't know. We can't promise specific pieces because we don't know what they all are.
Because it's just
They're not done yet. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well with that,
Let's
we're
wrap
gonna-
it up.
Yep, we're gonna say the library is now closing. It's been Brian, it's been Ben, and I'm your chief librarian. Again, I'm not a real librarian. I just LARP as one. We've had a lot of fun today, and the links will be down below how to check out their Kickstarter. I know this has been really choppy, so people haven't been necessarily able to follow along. I've been recording here, so I'm going to re-upload, and we'll rebroadcast later. And I hope everyone enjoys this on the rebroadcast. And if you have questions for these two in the future, you can reach out to them through the Kickstarter. Or you can just send me messages and I'll ask them questions that I know I'm going to ask them, because we'll do this again in the future. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and if you want to email us, it's just ben@99centadventures.com. That's easy.
99-cent adventures.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you guys so much.
And we are clear.
Sweet.
Thank you, Davey.